All right, everybody, we're going to call the Sherwood City Council regular meeting to order at 7 p.m. on February 21st, 2023. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Sylvia is out. Colleen, are you going to be doing our roll call tonight? Awesome, thank you.
Mayor Rosner?
Here?
Council President Mays?
Yep.
Councilor Young?
Here.
Councilor Scott?
Here.
Councilor Giles?
Here.
Councilor Stinky?
Here.
And absent is Councilor Browse.
All right, thank you, Colleen. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I have an amendment to the agenda. We need to remove item C from consent agenda, move it down. I'm assuming before public hearings, we'll make a new business section, item A. And then I will make a motion to approve, or
Make that change.
To make,
to make that change?
Yep.
I'll second.
Awesome, I've got a motion and a second. Everybody okay with that?
I'll say aye.
Well, I'm just asking if there's discussion. All right, everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
And now I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I will second.
All right, discussion on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, both motions passed. And thank you, Kim, for doing that. Appreciate it. So with that modification, we have 4 items on the consent agenda tonight. A is approval of the February 7th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Item B is Resolution 2023-013, authorizing an increase in the municipal judge's compensation. First time in 11 years, so we're happy about that. Resolution 2023-015, appointing Amanda Bryan to the Sherwood Library Advisory Board. And E, Resolution 2023-016, declaring the need to acquire real property interest to construct and thereafter operate and maintain Southwest Ice Age Drive through the Tonquin employment area. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. All right, citizen comments.
Anyone signed up?
Do we have anybody signed up? Okay. And who's online? One online. So I'll have them announce it. So we have I'm sorry. Okay, so there's we have someone dialed in at 503. I won't say the whole number out. Last 4 digits are 613. Are you here for citizens' comments tonight? If you are, just unmute. It looks like a no. Do we have anyone in the audience that wants to give citizen comments tonight? Oh, great. Come on up. Did you fill out one of the forms? Yeah, just go ahead and hand that to Colleen there. All right. Yeah, go ahead and have a seat. Yeah, so just quick comments for anyone who's new to this. Citizen comments are a chance for you guys to give comments to council. It's mainly a listening session. For us, we're not going to necessarily take comments or questions during comments. And you have 4 minutes. And there's a convenient little clock over there. If you run a little bit over, that's okay. Anyway, so go ahead and state your name and address and go ahead.
Cool. My name's Nathan Claus. I'm actually, my address is in Las Vegas. My parents live here in town. And so what I came to talk about tonight is they've been doing their property is 22211 Southwest Pacific Highway. Do you want my Las Vegas address or?
That's fine.
Oh,
That's
okay.
fine, yeah.
And they've been working on their property, getting it like functional and developed for a while. I know my dad and mom come and talk to you at citizen comments often. You probably don't see me because I haven't lived here in like 3 or 4 years. But I want to talk about something that was a little frustrating to me. Is my folks are working with this individual named Carlos. I forget his last name, but he's this small businessman, and he's running this really cool business where they are doing where they drill under and they put lines below, like phone lines and things like that. A really cool like public service that they help provide. And so my folks a couple weeks ago got a letter from the city saying that there was a violation with like the zoning ordinance that didn't allow Carlos and his business to use the property at 22211 Southwest Pacific Highway being used this particular way. And the thing that was really frustrating to me is this letter just said, we don't think this use is permitted. There was no like explanation for why they didn't think the use was permitted, other than it was tacked on and said, here's like the definitions, but there was no explanation further on. And I know Carlos has been trying to work with the cities, called a couple times, make it, because we want to make sure that like everything's all, for lack of a better word, kosher. But it's been frustrating on my end because I've been trying, I help out as much as I can, but it really seems like there's this disconnect that's happening of like communication between like the staff members. And I know that it seems like the staff members have been like, there's communication, like it doesn't seem like it's broken down at all, but it just seems like people are talking but they're not really connecting, if that makes sense. And so I really wanted to tell or give the advice of like in the future, when there's these situations, if the city can try to contact the people beforehand before they just send this like blanket violation letter, because the letter stated that that the city came on to like city property and viewed into my folks' place to like view the violation, and they took pictures, but there was no communication to my parents or to Carlos that like this use was not permitted. And even now in my like simple reading of the code and trying to understand, I don't really understand what is the complaint that's going on, because I've heard, well, you can't have truck storage, but you can. And then there's this like, well, we can't let these coils that they use to put the wires in like sit there in storage, even though it's part of like the trucks, and the trucks aren't really being stored there because every single day the trucks go out and it's just there overnight because it's part of like the business. And it's something that I would think that the city would be excited about, to have this small business guy who's got this great service. He's got like over 10 employees that he has come in and like work, and it's this cool operation. And it's just frustrating on my end, and like times where people are talking about that there's not enough I'm sorry.
Go ahead and finish up.
Yeah. And so to summate like everything I'm saying is like, I really appreciate that instead of just try having a more cooperative environment for this like kind of situation, because I think this is a great benefit to the city. And I don't understand what the specific issue with this is going on. And I'd love if they could have like a specific, here's where we're objecting kind of thing. Thank you for your time and letting me go a little longer.
All right, thank you, Nathan.
She wants to make, or she wants to give testimony as well. I don't know. Susan, are you on there? Okay, we'll try again after.
We'll try again after this. So the next one for the in-person, we have RJ Claus. Jim Claus? Hi, Jim. I'm doing good. How are you?
Thanks.
Good.
Okay, now, Carlos doesn't even want his last name brought up. I begged him to come here and he said he'd do it, but he said, Jim, they don't want us here. I said, well, you're Hispanic. I warned you. Now, I'm just mentioning that you was an issue because we've had issues with Hispanics before here. Diane Lumen, wasn't it Keith, that was doing that on the switchboard that got everybody upset? Or was it somebody else? Now, my point to you is really very simple. I first put in automotive and other parking of all kinds. Ken Shannon came over and asked me, and I said, well, it's non-conforming use, and they're allowing it. Then he asked me about what he should do with his building, and I foolishly told him because we had the original Fred Meyer store in Vancouver, and we'd found a way to use it. And that's what he did. I don't think Ken had an original idea in his life, but that's all right. Now, all of a sudden, he's got 100 vehicles over there and all kinds of other stuff. No problemo. But this guy comes on and he wants to bring the pipe and materials he runs daily. It's not inventory, it's a commercial operation. It's just simply that. You can't label it anything else. And he needs up to 1,000 feet a day, which is 4 rolls. Now, as you know, if you spot buy from a wholesaler, you're going to go broke. I'll leave that right where it is because that's what the intent was, in my opinion and belief. Now, as to solutions, Ron Krupp, who was the director for District Manager number 1, came out one day and we had a long talk and he said, are you amenable, since you own the only 3 easements between Meineke Road and Sunset, to some kind of solution? I said, yes. Now you want to hear this very carefully, because Krupp is really shocked about this. He was told you were going to run that road through me and you didn't care if there was a constitutional amendment or if there was case law saying you couldn't do it. You were conspiring to break the law. Now, I don't think that's what you were doing. I think what you were doing was trying to keep that property from coming into competition with less favorable property at the same price. I think it was a conspiracy to restrain trade. And I think Mr. Mays had something to do with that. But that's my opinion and belief, and we will find out in deposition. Now, let's just suppose for a minute your attorney finds out that it's a constitutional amendment, you can't take easements. Well, John McCulloch, who's a very good friend of mine, lost that case, and he said, you got to be stupid if you can't read Hansen v. ODOT and that amendment to know you pay, and even if you give a better easement, you have to pay for the ones you take. Now think about that for a minute. Now you're conspiring to steal real estate. Now, Tim, I don't think you're involved, but I think Mays is. I'm curious if you've ever stayed in Hawaii at anybody that's a tenant or anything of Langer's. We'll find that out in deposition. Depositions are wonderful things. You're between the devil and DBC. You lie, you go to jail. You tell the truth, you go to jail. Now, all I'm trying to tell you is every time we try to cooperate, you won't cooperate. Opus came in with a beautiful plan, and he had Julia Hyduke and Pat Allen tube it. And they wrote a letter, and they filed it, and it's in your files that you turned them down. Now, think about this for a minute. What do you think zoning is? Well, now we know. You wanted to turn Carlos into a conditional use permit in a permitted zone, which in effect makes it a cancelable license. They tried that in San Diego, went all the way to the Supreme Court. I'll guarantee you they lost it. Even Rehnquist couldn't hold his nose that long. I don't know what you're doing, but we're trying to cooperate with you. But all it does is cost us money, cost us tenants, and then get harassed. And don't tell me I've been on to police. Last time there was a complaint filed, Jeff Groth was the cop, and he came on there, investigated, and it found out it was coming from your property onto ours, and he paid to put a fence up and apologized. And this last time, we went to the homeowners association, and guess what? Nobody filed the complaint Mr. Rutledge says he has. I mean, you've got to stop, Tim, stop and think about this for
Jim,
a
we
minute.
gotta wrap
We're
it.
asking for some kind of help here to avoid litigation. I'm
I-
exhausting community remedies and reaching finality.
Jim, I understand.
understand
We gave you a little extra time, so we need to move
Well,
on to the
I'm
next
aware
person.
of that. But do you have any response at all to anything I've said?
As I
Is
said
there
at the
any
beginning, we don't,
possibility
this
of
is a chance for you to talk to us. We're not gonna answer
Pardon me?
questions. This is a chance for you to talk to us. We're not gonna answer questions in council. Your time's up, sir.
No, but you can get more information if you ask a question. And you don't
Jim,
have
your
any
time's up.
questions on any of this. Do you have any questions about what he told the commissioners? Because we got a file on that. This goes much deeper than you think it does, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have anyone else in the room that would like to give comment today?
I don't know if you can hear me. This is Susan Claus.
Hi, Susan.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, and
Oh, my.
and this and I
Thank
just
I've
want you
been
to
trying
know.
get in-
Yeah, I just want you to know this is
Okay.
the first time we're doing public comment over the Wi-Fi's and the internet. So,
Oh.
yeah, first time we've had one. Yes, but I just
Yeah,
but
thank you
we'll
for your patience.
yeah, and we'll watch the clock for you. And if you have any trouble or get disconnected, just a reminder, you can watch the meeting on our Zoom channel, and I think they're going to put a link in the chat for you. So go.
Okay, and I'm just on the telephone, and I wanted to tell you too before my time starts. Thank you to Ty Hamlin, because Ty has been trying to help solve this problem, and we got it solved. So I'm here, and you can hear me. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, thank
And
you.
let me know-
And Ty's here, he heard you. So if you want to go ahead and start, we'll
Okay.
start your timer.
Okay, great. Susan Claus, 22211 Southwest Pacific Highway. What Jim is talking to you about and what Nathan has mentioned is, as you all know, we've been on the highway for many, many years. And the issue that we're having now, it's really easy when people say, just let attorneys handle it. Or if you're represented by an attorney, then all of the conversation that we're able to have with the city goes out the window. We can't talk to them. We are not represented by an attorney. This is a straight a matter that we would like to have clarity on this issue where there's a supposed violation. If you look, we have general commercial zoning, which is like the best zoning of all as far as what is allowed and the different kinds of uses. This is the tenant that we're talking about is a general business offices. He's got a truck yard. Those are called out as uses that are allowed in the general commercial zone. And there is a disconnect going on. So far, it's the junior planner that we've been dealing with, who we're asking, we need help so there isn't a disconnect, and so these problems can get resolved. The business that is in there that is allowed by our zone, this should have been already handled. It's not, and we are looking for a speedy handling of this. It's like Jim talked about before. We've had many inspections over the years. Jeff Groth has been out there. Scott McKee's been out there. I mean, Bill, the code enforcement, it's just, Chris Green's been out there. Come on. So it's not that we are not trying to cooperate. I think that what's needed here is there's a misunderstanding of interpretation of words and a misunderstanding of what the process is. And how much time do I have left?
You got 1 minute and 38 seconds.
Okay. And so what we're talking about is, you know, we've been citizens for a long time. This makes no sense. Everyone is hopefully wants to work together to have a beautiful business in there that is having living wage jobs in the general commercial zone, exactly what the city council said is one of their primary goals. Here we've got a business and we've got a problem, and this can be resolved, and we're just asking that it's not bottlenecked and that a misinterpretation is coming up and things are getting off the rails when they don't need to be. This is something that the use is allowed. We don't know what this is, and the letter that we got didn't have a lot of clarity. We still haven't been able to get a lot of clarity. And could we please have a meeting? We are not, like I said, we are not represented. We want to get this resolved, and our tenant wants to get it resolved. He's actually been driving for the last hour and a half trying to get to the meeting, and he's been in traffic. And if there's any way you can accommodate when he actually does arrive, if it's at the end of the meeting or whatever, he really wants to talk to the council.
Well, your timing was perfect, Suzanne, or Susan. Thank you so much, and we'll talk internally with staff about that. All right.
Okay, and when Carlos shows up, please, if there's any consideration you as the council can give to him, he's never been at a city council meeting. He's a hard-working guy, and he really wants to talk to you.
Yeah, I understand, Susan. We have a couple of public hearings tonight, so it might be tough, but we'll see what we can do. All right.
Thank you.
Just ask staff, since this is now coming to council, can you just circulate some information to the rest to council on this, so we have an understanding of that word?
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. All right, so let me find my agenda here. So we're on to our next item, which is new business, and we need to discuss the resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the current intergovernmental agreement with Metro for solid waste community enhancement program. And so, Kim, I think you understand what we need to change. There was a Scribner error in there, and we have the wrong company name listed, so we just need to correct that. So take it away.
Motion. I move the approval of Resolution 2023-14, authorizing the city manager to sign an amendment to the current intergovernmental agreement with Metro for the Solid Waste Community Enhancement Program on the condition that Exhibit A, as attached to Resolution 2023-14, is corrected to refer specifically to Pride Recycling and not Pride Disposal.
Give a second.
I will second that.
Awesome. We have a motion and a second, and discussion on the motion just real quickly. Again, Scribner error, we just had the wrong company name in the resolution. That's why we had to pull it out of the consent agenda and handle it separately. So any other questions or comments from council?
Good catch.
Awesome. Great. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. So now we are on to presentations, and we have the pedestrian bridge presentation / update.
I think this is already on. All right. Jason Waters, city engineer. Excited to hear about this presentation on the pedestrian bridge. Been working with KPFF for a few months now, taking over for Bob Galati. We are fastly approaching 90% design, so they're going to give us a presentation. We have Kurt van der Zanden with KPFF and his team, and I think we'll have one or two of you come up at a time and proceed with the presentation and enjoy. Thank you.
Follow me.
You can pull more chairs up if you all want to.
Yeah,
be
we
up
can get
there.
some more chairs.
There we go. Let's pull it up, John. All right. First off, thanks for listening or being here this evening.
Well, thank you for being here. This is an exciting project, and we're excited to hear more about it.
I was trying to think the last time we were here, but it's been a little while. So the goal tonight is to basically walk through the design progression that's happened since last time that we saw you. We do have some specific issues that we want to discuss, and John's going to lead most of this discussion because they have mostly to do with aesthetics. And John's our bridge architect, so actually let's do that real quick. So Kurt van der Zanden, project manager at KPFF.
I'm John Breshears with Architectural Applications.
And we got Nick.
Yep, Nick Halsey with KPFF Structural.
And Craig's still hiding in the back. So Craig's our lead bridge engineer. So our meeting goals tonight are really to provide you with an update on the progress that we've made since last time we talked with you and to solicit input specifically regarding color selection for the proposed bridge. A brief overview of the agenda. We'll do a very brief overview and update, or overview, as everybody here, I believe, knows pretty well what the precursor was to this work. We do have a bridge and video walkthrough that we will run. We'll talk a little bit about artwork. We had a meeting with the Art Commission several weeks back, or maybe almost a month ago now. Okay, there you go. Has it been a month? Oh, my goodness. Okay, then we'll spend a fair amount of time on the bridge color discussion, then we will talk about next steps. So, John, you're on.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so as we heard, we're approaching 90% completion, which means all the big decisions have been made, except for the color, and we're trying to clean up and finish the details. And all of you have seen presentations of this bridge in various stages before, so hopefully it won't be too much of a surprise, but everyone understands the setting, where the bridge is and what it has to do, why it's going there. So if anyone has any questions, but I don't think there's much to explain. Here, just to remind everybody, here we see the site plan where we've chosen to put the bridge, and it's split up into 5 spans between supports, and it has this logic to it where 3 of the spans are arches that are upright, because arches are a very efficient structural form, and we put them upright where they go over the roadways, and we need headroom underneath for the traffic. And then in the 2 intermediate spans between them, we're just going over green areas and stormwater catchment basins, and so we invert the arches because we don't need that headroom, and you end up with this continuous sine wave-like form of the bridge. So that's what we're looking at. And then you have approach ramps and stairs on either end that are designed to fit into the available space in the landscape to bring people up onto and down off of the bridge. So we have some updated, an updated video that both walks you over the bridge and drives you under it. I'll point out that since the very beginning, we've been just using as a working placeholder a kind of crimson red color that just allows us to sort of see the bridge and distinguish it from the landscape when we're working on it. That doesn't mean that's a color decision, but that's what you're looking at here. As we talk about the color, I'll point out as we're walking across here, some of the things are decided. The bridge deck that you're walking on will be concrete. We are planning for the little belvederes, these little inset pieces where the railing bulges out, to make the concrete a slightly different color in those zones. Also, the support walls that hold up these 5 spans I talked about are also concrete. So everybody knows what that looks like. All of the railings, both the handrail and the structural pieces that hold them up, and the mesh, as well as the X's, the cross bracing that stiffen the arches, are going to be out of stainless steel. We have some samples we're going to show you. So when it comes to talking about color, what we're really talking about are what we call the primary steel members. Those are the main tubular arches and the main tubes that run along right under the deck, as well as all the cross members that connect them both over the top and under the deck. Everything that's essentially that crimson red color in this video is what we're discussing. Apologies for the flicker in these videos. That's just something that the software we use does. It produces these videos as a side benefit. Its main purpose is to design bridges, so it's not a perfect video. The other thing that I'll point out, so as we're all enjoying this little drive around your town, is that, you know, these, especially when we're talking about colors and when we're looking at nighttime lighting, we get an approximation of that with this software. It's not exact, but we're trying to give you the best impression we can. And similarly, we've got some actual color samples to look at. We can see what they look like tonight under this fluorescent light. They would look very different if you were to take them outside tomorrow in the daylight, in the morning, And they'd look, again, even more different if you took them out tomorrow afternoon when the sun's in a different position. So things are very changeable. Before we move on to the art discussion, do we have any questions or comments so far? I'm hoping nobody's surprised at what you're seeing. Okay. Okay, that's good.
Great.
So this is one of the boards we brought to the Arts Commission. Thank you, the Arts Commission, suggesting where there are circles with numbers or letters in them. These are the areas that we identified as potentially available for art. There was a decision made because of the speed of this project, which is for a project its scale has gone very fast, that we wouldn't try and put art onto the bridge because trying to coordinate those two efforts might slow things down, but rather we'd put art somewhere in the landscape or possibly on the approach ramps. And each of these sites we discussed with the commission, they all have trade-offs of how much space is actually available versus how much visibility and from which roadways and which walkways they have. And so we tried to give them as much information as we could, and they're off trying to come up with a plan for how they're going to commission and create some artwork to enhance this project. I can't tell you which of the sites they're leaning towards yet. We haven't heard back from them.
Quick question. On other bridges and other communities, I've seen folks put something that represents the community embedded in the concrete columns. Is that something that, I mean, like if it was Sherwood, it could be a big S, for instance. Is that something we could or should consider, or is it really not appropriate?
So there was a lot of interest from the Arts Commission on whether embedding things in the concrete on the deck, so they would be sort of in the floor, was possible. I think they were interested in nature symbols and family-friendly scavenger hunt type things, possibly, as some of the exceptions. When we said we don't want to put art on the bridge because that might slow things down, we weren't really thinking about impressions in concrete. That's a relatively minor thing, and if we know in time, we can probably accommodate that. In fact, I think if we put
I just want to throw it before I bring it up.
Sure.
Ross,
Sure.
that was my impression because I've seen it a lot.
Yeah.
And I got to believe from a cost point, it's probably it's literally you stick a form inside the form.
That's right. In fact, what we would want to do is, if we're going to do that, we just want to get some sort of rough estimation of what we're going to do, and ask the contractor to carry a placeholder in their budget to do that. And then whoever the artist is or whoever's making the decision on what those are going to be would have more time to actually do the design and figure it out. But that's the deadline that we're working against, is we want to have it when it goes out to bid. We want to.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So I have a question, actually. This is the first I've heard that we didn't want to do artwork embedded into the bridge. Was that a decision made by the Art Council, or is that a recommendation from you as the engineer's consultant?
Well, technically, we directed, the council directed by resolution, asking the Arts Commission to look at art at the landings, and then said art on the bridge would be a council decision or direction from council.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought we had said. All right.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but there isn't anything that would preclude us from adding art to the bridge after the fact, right? Like, obviously, depending on what it is and the financial feasibility and everything. But like, I know one of the things that was discussed at those belvederes, if you will, was like maybe having some wayfinding signs or something installed in them. Then we could add that later.
This is your bridge.
Yeah.
But there are some caveats.
Of course.
Right. Yeah, once you start going up on the structure, it starts to have some effect on functionality.
Right.
I think when I pinch hit it at the Arts Commission for you last month, when they presented to the Arts Commission, if we wanted art on the bridge, like, the timeline is very short to make those decisions, and there wasn't really going to be that time. If we wanted to keep on the timeline that we're on, I think it was something like, you guys had to have an answer like before July or before June, or, I mean, so like April, so they can do something by June. So, I mean, it was really a crunch timeline.
The bridge is the art.
Right.
Like, that's
That's
what
what
I
I
look
think.
at it as. The bridge is the art, and if we add stuff, the concrete impressions, great, fine. But
Yeah.
the bridge
one,
is the art.
Yeah, the one, and I'll carry forward because we actually had I'm the liaison of the Arts Commission, Arts Commission, and we had the meeting last night. And they had feedback on the type of art on both landings areas. And a question they had for council was, specifically, they were saying in the area of A, B, and C, that's where they would probably, be pushing for like a welcome to Sherwood sign, unless the council wanted to put that on the bridge. And so I said, I will ask the question.
Sorry. I was a little preemptive.
Are you making a motion?
And it's not at the, I didn't say it last night, but this isn't at the entrance to town. The town will grow. So I don't know if that's where you'd put a welcome, on the bridge.
I'm strongly against putting it on the bridge itself.
Any other thoughts at this point on that point? Or you just can chew on it?
Yeah,
We don't have to
I was
actually,
gonna say the
certainly not
last-
making a decision tonight.
Yeah, I don't want to make a decision tonight, but it is the entryway to the city, and I thought we'd reserve the right to do. And by the way, I think it's a beautiful bridge, but I was not under the impression that we were only going to look at stuff on the landing sites.
Well, that's the Arts Commission. That's right. That is just, the Arts Commission is on the landings. The bridge is
Right,
the city council.
Right, I thought they were going to also make recommendations about on the actual bridge, but we'll talk about that later.
Dan, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to reiterate that as of right now, that is the entrance to the city essentially. And so to have, it doesn't need to be a welcome, but something to denote, like this is what people are going to see when they first come in. I know that there's more land south of that, but this is essentially, so there should be something.
On or near it.
Something, yeah.
And I think the A, B, or C, or even D potentially is the right location for that personally versus on the bridge itself. Would be my preference.
We can keep gnawing on it.
Yep, we can. We
Then-
have a little bit of time.
As Sherwood grows, when that no longer is the entrance to the city, then
But to move
it's
the
easy
bridge.
to move a sign. It's not so easy to move a bridge.
Exactly.
It's true.
All right.
Okay, Nick, you cue that up. I'm just gonna, we had just a few samples, because it's always helpful. So all of the diagonal elements and railing elements are gonna be stainless steel kind of turnbuckles like these. These are slightly smaller. We think one huge advantage of these is they don't have to be painted.
Hey, excuse me, could somebody please turn on the microphone? I can't hear.
So he was,
We're just introducing some stainless steel samples that are the
Okay.
kind of ties for the bridge, because they don't have to be painted. Most importantly, they don't have to be repainted when the time comes for repainting. So that's a savings, and we think they're quite beautiful. And then I have 3 color samples that we're going to look at some renderings of. But I'm
It's
just gonna,
hands-on time, Taylor.
it's show and tell.
wish you were here.
I have stainless steel on my coffee table here. I'll just rub that.
Okay.
Feels pretty good.
Well, this one's very silver, the one I'm holding.
Okay. So we have actually, I think before we talk about our specific color suggestions, we can just look at some bridge examples and arch bridges that are mostly in this region, not entirely, but of different colors. So go ahead. You can see some large-scale arches that are sort of very light white color. We're all familiar with these examples. And some smaller pedestrian scale bridges that are also very light. White has become a very popular color for bridges in about the last 25 years, I would say. And I don't know why that is, but you see a lot of them now. Again, some more white bridges, white arch bridges that haven't been built yet but are coming.
Is that partly due to they have longer life because of UV issues?
I don't think so. I think it's partly because a very famous Spanish bridge architect has been doing a bunch of really, really stunning bridges, and they're all white. And architects are susceptible to fashion. I can tell you that. So,
Because my concern is it shows dirt, right? So
Right.
you have to clean it.
right, it does that.
What's your concern, Doug?
And rust.
And rust. Well, it's hopefully not showing any rust. And then we have some examples of colored arches. Of course, all of the bridges on the coast and many of the highway bridges in Oregon are this classic green color in the upper right. The red color is over McLaughlin Boulevard, I believe, in Oregon City. And the lower left is the pedestrian bridge at Union Station. It is 25 years old at least and really needs to be repainted, as you can see. And then on the right is a bridge in Chicago, but it's a blue color. One of the colors we're proposing is blue, so we wanted to put that in. Apart from the one alternative to painting this structural steel, all the pieces we were talking about in the video, is using instead what's called a weathering steel. And in that case, the bridge, the steel forms a layer of rust on the outside, but it's formulated so that rust doesn't go deeper. It doesn't corrode all the way through. It forms a protection of the steel. And then the finish of the bridge is rust. It's more textured and it's of this variegated rust color.
How does the rust hold up to vandalism and spray painting?
So it has advantages and disadvantages. So let's start with the disadvantages because you went there. So one disadvantage is that when it does get spray painted, it can be really hard to remove that. You can try and sandblast it. You may have to paint over it in a color that matches that rust. Another disadvantage is that it tends to, the water running off of it tends to stain concrete or hard surfaces that it lands on. It tends to stain it that red color. A great advantage is that you never have to pay for repainting of it. And we think it's approximately cost, those two options, painting the steel or using weathering steel, are about the same cost-wise, first cost-wise.
Initial cost plus maintenance.
Well, if you factor in maintenance, then the cost of repainting has to be, yeah, right.
Balanced against having to do more sandblasting or whatnot.
Well, yeah, exactly.
How long does the weathering steel take to form that color? Is it like overnight? Is it 5 years? Like,
I think it comes already.
Does it come that color? Weeks. Okay.
Yeah. In Oregon. Yeah.
The right time of year.
Yeah. This is a bridge that actually KPFF did on the Wildwood Trail, but it's just a nice example because it actually uses some weathering steel and some painted steel side by side, and you can just kind of see some contrast. We're not proposing mixing and matching those finishes, but you get to see both of them.
I don't know, it looks to me like they forgot to paint part of it.
Okay.
No offense.
None taken.
It's beautiful. No.
Right. So we thought about some colors. If you do weathering steel, that's what it is. But if you do painted steel, you have a world of options. We thought that three different options would be good ones. One is a white, very fashionable, as I said. But it makes the bridge very visible, very distinctive. What's also nice about white is that we've talked about before, and we're going to try and show you some rendered approximations. We have lighting that lights the arches. So at night it tries to highlight this sine curve effect. And those lights, the way they're specified now, can be programmed to show any color you want. So the white presents a really nice screen for that, for the color changing show that you might want to show on that.
I have a lot of lighting questions that we can maybe hold them till later in the
Sure.
episodes. I don't want to derail, but
Okay,
I do want to make sure we come back to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. So, and what you see here is just a white light on the white paint on the top, and on the bottom, it's actually a kind of reddish colored light. And there's also lighting in between the support, the concrete walls of the supports, and on the bottom, those are shown as green right now. They could be, again, any color we want. And that could
And when you
change.
say that, it means we can change them anytime. We
can change
we
them
can
any-
seasonally for events, whatever, we could.
You have full control.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you animate the lights at all?
Yeah. I think you can. Yeah, I have to double check. But I think
The reason I bring that up, and this is kind of like one of those pie in the sky things that would be wonderful, but when you're sitting at a football game or a soccer game at the high school, you're going to be able to see this bridge. So it'd be great, like if they score a touchdown.
Be a safety hazard for
there's
the
a little light show
drivers.
that goes off on the bridge.
That's cool, though.
That would be like.
yeah.
Well, you could do it on the
Yeah.
non-99
So
side.
two things about that. One, you program the lights not on site. It's somebody remotely sitting at a computer terminal. So I think you have a lot of ability to do things. So probably.
yeah.
We know from other bridge projects that ODOT is going to have something to say about how much strobe light effect and disco nightclub effect we can produce on this.
We don't want to cause an accident, but it would be a nice.
That would be cool.
Even if it just changed.
Sure.
The school colors or something.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's a lot of possibilities, but we'll just have to clear it with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next option that we thought is worth considering is this blue, almost a midnight blue. I think it's a really beautiful color. It would be very changeable in the light. Against some twilight skies, it might almost disappear. Just think it's a nice option in this landscape. And when we go to darker colors, the first thing, Nick, that you notice at night is that the color changing effect on the arches is more muted. It's there. You're still going to see the light of that sort of sinuous curve, but the variations in color aren't going to be as pronounced. And in fact, we would be looking at some mock-ups and try and get more precise information. But one option in that case would be to keep the color changing lights in the concrete where you see them as green there, and possibly just go to white lighting on the steel. If you're not going to get as much strong of an effect. And so the advantage of doing that would be the cost savings of using a white lighting system as opposed to a color changing system. And then the final color that we're proposing, again, anything is possible, but a deep, almost like a painted version of a rusty red. And the reason for that really is that rusty red is such a beautiful contrast in this lush green landscape that we all live in the Willamette Valley, that it seems like a good option. It's one of the reasons that brick buildings like the YMCA always seem to pop so much. So that, and again, this very rough approximation, you do see the lighting of the arches, but the changing colors is going to be less pronounced. That's it, right?
So you want to, so question of,
Oh,
I have a question of the different options and
right.
fading of color over time, and also specifically, let's say you pick a color and it's fading in 5 years, and a member of not our community is visiting our community and they tag part of it, and the remedy is to repaint that part. You repaint the original color, and if it's faded, then it's going to be rather different, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
If it fades, so my concern is that if you pick these, and how much the color, including white, would fade over time in the event you needed to repaint part of it because of tagging or vandalism or something.
Right.
Assuming that or is there treatments that you can do that will prevent the tagging from sticking, and you can pressure wash it off? I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
But that's.
So if I don't know definitive answers for those, but I can give you some information. On the paint coating systems that we would use, their service life is generally plus or minus 20 years. They all are about that long. They will fade eventually. The examples that we looked at, like the bridge over McLaughlin, that's orange, and the Union Station Bridge, those are both well over their service life of 20 years, and so they're overdue for a repaint anyway. So that's as much as I can tell you about the fading question. Tagging you were going to get, if you have to repaint it, you wouldn't just sort of pull more stock paint off the shelf. They would try and get it color matched to whatever the paint around it is at the time. And there are various anti-graffiti coatings that we might be able to put on top of the paint. I think that would probably come at an added cost. My experience is that they're sort of effective, but nothing is 100% effective. Yeah, I cut us off. There's the last option, which we've already talked about, is weathering steel, which is the rust, and it's quite beautiful in its own way because it's not a uniform tint. It has some variation to it. It kind of is a living finish. It is also more rough. Doesn't have any gloss to it at all, like the paint, which has at least some. So it's even less reflective of the light that we'd put onto it. Right. So we don't, and we can talk about the lights. We don't need to have a color decision tonight. You're all off the hook. At some point, and we'll talk about when, we probably need to understand whether we're going to it's going to be painted some color or we're going to use weathering steel.
Maybe we could have a quick conversation on that.
Yeah.
I personally am not in favor of weathering steel, but I'd like, obviously.
No for me.
That's fine.
The concern is, right, there's the vandalism element, and then if is there some point you do a hybrid, and I don't think you do a hybrid of painted up to a certain point and then weathering beyond that. I don't think you do that, right?
You actually, you do sometimes. If anybody's driven past, for example, the Sauvie Island Bridge, which is in the middle at the top, recently that's a weathering steel bridge. It's up a sort of upper left now. And if you look at the very bases of the arch, it's a sort of solid color. It's been painted. And I think that's not so much for vandalism protection as it is for drip protection, trying to keep the water draining off the steel from staining the concrete. But you can do that.
Well, that's another good point. Like the whole bridge is that weathered, and it drips down onto our nice concrete walkways. You're just
Right.
going to have those rust stains.
I'm fairly well against the weathered.
I as well.
Yeah.
Taylor?
I'm against the weathered. I feel like that was a big decision in the 70s/early 80s, and I feel it looks dated.
Right. Well, we're going painted.
Okay.
So at least you know that. So it's paint, and we can figure out the color later.
Figure out the
We're
color.
not even going to talk about it now?
We can talk about it if you'd like.
I mean, I would, but if no one else wants to talk about it.
what?
Initial
I'll talk about it.
thoughts, I think it's fine. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, well, so when we first started talking about this bridge, my original thought was very similar to the deep red color. For the reasons you stated, and obviously the high school, that's one of the team colors as well. So I like that color, and I like the contrast with the green and everything. But now I'm torn because the lighting effect is so much stronger, especially if you want to do like green or red or blue or any other colors at different seasons or different events or 4th of July or whatever, and not having that impact, then it kind of leaves me, can I have a red bridge in the day and a white bridge at night? Can we do that? A color changing bridge? So I'm torn. I don't have an answer tonight, but those are my two thoughts. I don't like the blue. I would go with one of the other two. But
Dan, do you have any thoughts?
Kind of the same thing. I like the red during the day and the white at night, but having the columns be the light potentially, or adding lighting elsewhere if we really wanted more lighting effect. The red, I mean, that's the Bowman color that really sticks out with this as a, yeah.
Same. I like the white at night, but during the day it's just bland. I think the red stands out. It's like gateway. So.
The only way I think it could pivot off of the white is if you put lights on the cross beams somehow. You know, so literally there were many lights on the stainless steel supports.
Right.
So that it is something that is visible, and I don't even know if that's doable because.
Yeah. The,
I-
like I said, I
Red
apologize.
or white, and I'm leaning white.
Okay, okay. I apologize for the sort of approximate nature of these renderings. The uplights that are lighting the arch are actually washing up right in the plane of all that stainless steel, and I think there's going to be a lot more stainless steel highlights than this rendering shows.
So that might pick up more of the color. That's what
Yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah.
potentially.
And, yeah, so I liked, if we're gonna do a color, I think I do like the red better than the blue. I think that with the light, I'm also leaning towards the white with lights. I feel like it gives us more flexibility. I feel like it's easier to match when we repaint. And frankly, I love that sine curve at night. I mean, that just, when you're talking about a dramatic entrance to a city, that looks phenomenal, right? So, and you know, I love the idea of being able to change it to celebrate different events in the city.
Holidays, whatever.
A couple, some lighting. Can I get into some lighting questions?
Please,
Comments?
yeah.
So, so what you're saying is the lights aren't necessarily on the curve itself; they're shining up on it from
Yeah,
below. Okay,
that's right.
that's the news to me. I was for some reason just in picturing in my mind the lights would be actually on the arch itself.
Yeah, no, that's
So-
understandable.
Okay.
One of the reasons that we're doing that, there's many, but one of the reasons we're doing that is for maintenance. All of the light fixtures are at the deck level.
Yeah.
So you can imagine getting a lift up onto the bridge and getting it up to the top of the arch.
Okay. So the other thoughts I had is I could imagine a scenario where I might want, this is great. I might want the above arches to be one color and the below arches to be a different color, right? So you kind of get that alternating effect. If that's, I mean, I know it's possible, but something to think about, having different channels for that. I also like the idea of it normally being all one continuous color, but in certain, like a holiday or something, you might want to have an alternating. So I'd like to have that flexibility. And then I guess the other thing I thought about was additional lighting, like someone else mentioned, whether that be on the railings of the walkway or the panels of the walkway or something, so that maybe, like, the bottom is a good example, right? So maybe you've got red on the bridge curve and you got the green on the deck, but maybe, you could have a third color or maybe green again on the, the, what do we call them, the barriers, the fences that keep people from falling off the bridge, right? So that you'd have, maybe that's too much, but I'm just thinking out loud. Or those, like, struts that go down from the deck to the lower panels, but again, those are the stainless steel things. So I'm just, like, I just assumed you guys at some point would be coming to us and asking us all these options about lighting, and so maybe that was a bad assumption on my part.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we're talking about it. We've talked about lighting in a couple of other presentations, and I can't remember if one of them was the city council. There are 3 types of lighting on the bridge, four type fixtures, and so really we're only talking about the structural or the what can we call it, the aesthetic lighting right now with the colors. There's also on the approaches, the ramps, there's a series of poles. They're very sleek, sort of stainless steel poles that have lights embedded in them. We think they're very sympathetic to the bridge, that provide safety lighting for walking along those pathways at night. On the bridges, the stainless steel handrails, and you see in there, they have lights embedded in the bottom of them, and they sort of very discreetly just illuminate the walkway. So both of those are for safety and security. You always see where you're going. And stop. Can you stop there, Nick? You can almost see in the little, almost like the gutters on either side of the walkway.
Yeah.
That's where the color changing light fixtures are, and they're shining up. Whoops, hit the microphone. They're shining up so the light kind of is caught in the curve of the arch. But you can see that they also wash all that stainless steel. So there'll be a lot of light, albeit in the same color, that's going to be reflecting and glinting off of that. I think it'll be quite beautiful, to be perfectly honest.
Wait, is the idea of being able to have the lower ones on a different channel than the upper ones, so they could be different colors? Is that
I
a reasonable
think,
possibility?
yeah.
We
it's
never
de-
use it.
It's definitely possible. I need to find out if that's what's in the specification right now. I'm not a lighting controls expert, but we have one on our staff, so we'll figure it out.
Maybe no one else wants it.
Well, no,
Options are good.
If it's cost feasible.
Right.
my understanding of the technology is those fixtures are addressable,
I believe so.
My thought would be if we want to maximize, so as, if each one's individually addressable, we can do whatever we want
Yeah.
with the lighting.
So you could literally do a rainbow
I kind of look at
across.
the channels, but
Yeah,
that might be.
we just,
They're all
lots of
channels,
zones.
that's a whole different thing.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my only concern is, if we're gonna make the architectural lights be part of the design and everything else, I would like to see a rendering of what that looks like, if possible, with all that stainless steel, right? Because what I wouldn't want it to look like is, like, I think what I like so much about the white one is that S curve, right? And if it's, with a lot more reflection of the stainless steel, I'm not sure you have that effect. So is there software or somewhere we can see what it looks like in a more realistic view, or do we just have to wait?
It is represented in these images that we're showing to some extent. Oh, sorry. It is represented to some extent in these images that we've shown. You can see depending on, it's not very good on the screen here, but there is a little bit of a glow on the rods. The thing is, the rods and the mesh are very small diameter relative to the scale of these images, and so that's why you really, at this scale, don't see it very clearly.
Can you go back to the white version of this?
Do you have it?
Yeah, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Quick question, are we still, from a safety standpoint, obviously we've got the lighting element, are we still making accommodations for cameras and just safety alert kind of thing, mid-span of if somebody is whatever, say, hey,
That actually just came up a little earlier this week, wasn't it? No, it was last week. I can't keep time straight.
Okay.
But the security question came up last week. We are scrambling right now. I think right now our scope had including accommodation for the cameras. I think based on the discussion we had last week, we know we actually need to take that one step further and really start looking at placement of the cameras, making sure we're understanding where they're going, and actually including the cameras in the construction package. So.
and then I'd want Chief and team to give the feedback on it. Should there be, a hot phone or a call box or whatever. I mean, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, would it be absolutely yes. Today, I think the answer might still be yes, but I want that conversation to be had, and then I want to hear what people's perspective, the professional's perspective is, and then get input for council, if possible.
Great. All right, well, we probably should get moving along here. We can make a decision on the paint later, but I think you guys got a lot of good input, especially on, I think we're going with paint versus the weathered steel, so that's helpful as you move forward. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. No. We can put Oregon State colors. Oregon State colors.
And do you want to let the other public comment come in?
So, do we have a sheet?
Get another public comment?
All right, I believe Carlos is here. I just want to double check with council. Are you okay with doing some public comment here? Awesome. Carlos, come on up. So there's a little green button, so hold that. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Yeah, so go ahead and state your name and your address, and we do 4 minutes, but if you go a little bit long, I'm not going to.
Sure. My name is Carlos Villarruel. I'm one of the owners of Timber State Drilling and Construction, a small construction business here in Washington County and Yamhill County. And today I just wanted to introduce myself. We are using the Claus's property as a truck yard, and I just wanted to introduce ourselves as a business and what we do. I myself coach soccer in the city of Newburgh. A good friend of mine, he does jiu-jitsu here. He's also a business owner, lives in Sherwood. And my other good friend, his daughter plays softball here in the city of Sherwood. So this is our community. And today I just want to take 4 minutes to say who we are. You may see our trucks rolling around in town. We're a directional drilling and boring business. So what we do mainly is telecom or technology, essentially putting coax or fiber under the ground for all of us to get internet. Now, as you know, we're in a world of working from home, and so I know many of you in the city of Sherwood and the surrounding counties want faster internet, and that's essentially what we do as a business. So today I mainly came to introduce myself. I know I've been speaking with Eric. Eric's been really good to us with the city of Sherwood Planning Department. I'm learning about code and code enforcement, but that's mainly what I wanted to do, because I think in any community or city it's important when you see vehicles coming out of somewhere, what they're doing, people tend to wonder. The reason I picked this area to live in is for myself, my safety of my family. I really like small communities. I grew up in Corvallis, Oregon. I had the pleasure of my life there for 20 years, and then I thought it was time to get out and move on. And so starting a business is a big deal to me. Working in the small community is a big deal to me. I employ 20 men and women from the USA, Mexico, Venezuela, and El Salvador. A lot of those men and women live in this community, as well as Washington County and Yamhill County and a little bit of the Salem area. So today was just introduce myself, working with Eric to learn how code goes and code violations go to make sure we're doing the right thing. And I do thank you, Eric, for taking the time to meet with myself and my operations manager. Our intent is to be good business owners, to be good providers of employment, and also to be good, residents here in the city of Sherwood as business owners. So I just wanted to thank you guys for your time. And if you guys have any questions, I'll take them. We at some point would love to work with the city of Sherwood and help in putting the fiber in the ground, because I know that it's something that's well needed.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Carlos. And Eric, thank you for working with Carlos. And let's continue those conversations and see what we can do. So, but thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful city. So.
And telecom, you're right. It's very important. So appreciate all that work you guys are doing out there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So moving on, we have a public hearing tonight. And the first one is on a planned unit development. So Ryan, you want to go ahead and lead us into that?
Sure. The public hearing on ordinance number 2023-001, approving a 31-lot planned unit development and subdivision to be known as the Moser Pass PUD, is called to order. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. Receive any written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. Applicants, 30 minutes. Persons in favor of the application, 4 minutes. Persons opposed to the applications, 4 minutes. Persons neutral with regard to the application, 4 minutes. Rebuttal from the applicants, remainder of 30 minutes. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public or the applicants. Final comments by staff, 15 minutes. Questions of staff, if any, by the council. Discussion by the council. This is the second hearing before City Council on this application. A decision may be made by the council at the close of this hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the request to speak forms and submit it to the city recorder prior to the time the public hearing is open for testimony. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any comments must be addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and place of residence for the record, as this hearing will be recorded. Please speak clearly into the microphone. In reaching a decision on the application, the council must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations and any other applicable law. Those criteria are identified in the staff report. The testimony and evidence must address these criteria or other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the council, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. At this time, I would like to ask the members of council to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. Let's take a break there. Does any member of council wish to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflict of interest?
I have none.
No, the extent. No, then the extent of communications I've had since our last meeting was with staff.
Yeah, I've had no ex parte contact except talking to staff. Plan to participate.
No contact, nothing to say. I will participate.
No contact besides with staff, and I plan to participate.
One matter, if
I have had no ex parte contact, and I plan on participating.
And Councilor Scott, I know that you were not present for the last meeting. Are you comfortable participating? Have you been caught up to speed?
Yes.
Thank you. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any council member's ability to participate? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So we'll go ahead and move on to staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Rosener and City Council. Eric Rutledge, Community Development Director, and happy to be giving this presentation this evening. Just a reminder on where we're at in the process here, bigger picture for PUDs. This has already gone to Planning Commission with a recommendation to you. We held the first hearing at City Council on February 7th. We're now at the second reading. If the application is approved, the final development plan would go to Planning Commission, and then the final step would be to record the plat, because there's a subdivision with this with Washington County. And as noted previously, we routed the application to affected agencies, provided public notice within 1,000 feet of the site, and also accepted public testimony. We did get a few pieces of verbal testimony, which you have heard. No written testimony has been received. And as always, for reference, the applicable criteria. So we have a detailed staff report that goes over all of the criteria in detail. Happy to answer any specific questions on any of the code. And as a quick reminder of where the site is, outlined here in red, a little bit over 12 acres in size at the corner of the northeast corner of Murdoch Road and Upper Roy Street, just north of the other Denali subdivisions and PUDs that the city's been approving recently to the south. And just a really quick reminder on the code and the proposal. So the underlying zone, the existing zone is VLDR, very low density residential, permits 0.7 to 1.0 units per acre. The code allows, if it's approved by the city, a PUD in this zone, which would permit 1.4 to 2.0 units per acre. And then the code also allows what we call VLDR PUD within the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, and that requires conformance with the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. And under that scenario, the applicant's eligible for up to 4.0 units per acre. With the latest proposal that we've received from the applicant that was sent around to you, and I'll have a few slides of that, at 30 lots total, the density per the code is 3.0 units per acre with a minimum lot size of 10,000. And so that's where we're at still within this VLDR PUD Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. So still above the VLDR PUD zone at 3.0 units per acre. And based on the feedback that we received at the last meeting, just wanted to highlight a few of the key approval criteria that staff was looking at based on that feedback and sort of how we're getting to the changes, which I'll go over in a second. The first one that is the exceptions and standards of the underlying zoning district are warranted by the unique design and amenities incorporated into the development plan. And then number 6, that the PUD will have a beneficial effect on the area which cannot be achieved using the underlying zoning district. So again, increased density to 3 units per acre, about 3 times the underlying zone, and what you've requested in response to that is what I'll go over on the next few slides. So council directed staff to produce a few different alternatives for consideration this evening. Option A is findings of denial based on the PUD approval criteria. That'd be the two that I just went over. You do have an attachment to the staff memo of findings of denial. So I'll go over the alternatives at the end, but that was in the packet. And then option B is findings of approval with changes to the plan, including pedestrian path in track C to either be ADA compliant or hard surface to match the other adjacent subdivisions, with guardrails where adjacent to retaining walls or steep slopes for safety. And then the key element of getting to a yes under this scenario would be a 1 acre park with a play structure, a sports court, flat area for recreation, covered area for gathering, potential for a restroom, and potential for parking. And staff has taken the original plan and marked it up based on that feedback. I would just want to clarify that, so this would be where the 1 acre park is located. The condition allows, this is what staff is recommending for a new 1 acre park in terms of location. The condition as it's written now would allow the applicant to choose a different location with the minimum size of 1 acre with all these other standards being met. So I just want to clarify, this is where staff is showing it, but as written now, if you were to go with that condition, it could be revised in the future and approved by Planning Commission in a different location as long as all those standards were met. So just to go over what is shown here, again, the 1 acre park would be in this location. The reason we chose this location, mainly because it's a flat area, can be easily accessible from the road, easily built on with improvements that we're looking for. And then I think the key part is that it has significant frontage on a public road, not behind private lots, not difficult to reach or to access. And then in terms of the overall location within the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, more in a central location as opposed to the very north side. A few other notes, we did add this, we narrowed, if you recall the previous proposal, this was a little bit wider entrance into this track C, so we've narrowed that down. The requirement for this walkway into the open space and this one here, we added another one here, would be a 15-foot walkway, so 5-foot pathway, 5-foot landscaping on each side. This gazebo would go away, so the improvements in track C would be more of the linear trail and open space that has been talked about, and then your more of gathering space, leisure area, visible and accessible to the public would be in this area. So benches would remain, the reforestation would remain, this gazebo would go away, and we'd still have the connection to Murdoch Road. And just getting into a little bit more detail on the park space, again, if it were located in this location or any other location with the condition B13 requires trees, landscaping, and lighting, 20,000 square foot flat area that is ADA accessible from the street, a nature play center, that's a few examples here, basically a playground that's using natural material, or it could be manufactured but mimics natural material, a full-size basketball court or tennis court, a gazebo with a covered structure at a minimum size, 2 benches, and this was proposed as optional, restroom to match the cannery square. We did get a rough estimate from the Public Works Department that put, with utilities and construction of the bathroom, so you're assuming lighting and plumbing, in this case, 185 to 210 was an estimate from the Public Works Department. And then optional 90-degree stalls to the public street. And so that would be just straight off the public street, 90-degree stalls. And in the condition, the parking stalls would replace any acreage within the park. And so it's not parking in addition to the 1 acre parking is going to be more expensive, and so it wouldn't be required in addition to the 1 acre park. And then changes to track C, again, removal of the gazebo to ensure adequate size within track C, 1.75 acres. Right now it's at about 2. An additional walkway, as I showed on this slide, 1 additional walkway. Again, hard surface trail and 2 benches. So really, adding a new park, providing a lot of amenities and scaling down a little bit the improvements within track C. To try and get the applicant some, square footage back, what was recommended by council and supported by staff is to give back as much as possible, reasonably possible, of the open space track to the private lots. And so we have a 1 acre park, 43,000 square feet roughly. The area shown in gray would be current open space that's within a private tract, and so it's not being counted towards the lots. And under this approach, all of this area shown in gray can be converted to easements over private lots. And the idea is there that we're basically double counting the open space and the private lots. And so as shown here, and this is very rough, I'm sure the applicant might have some comments on what we're showing, but very roughly about 26,000 square feet. And so the net loss, if we did add a 1 acre park, is about 17,000 square feet of lot area. It's not a perfect indication of how many lots would be lost. If they're all at 10,000, you assume you would lose 2 lots potentially. We have to consider the other development standards, lot width, depth, and they'd still have to show conformance with and meet all of those other, lot dimension standards. And so it's not a guarantee that it's just a loss of 2 lots. Staff hasn't really gone through the process of redesigning the whole site, but generally speaking, it would be a loss of about 17,000 square feet of lot area. So 2 to 3 lots is likely what you're looking at. And then I won't spend too much time on this. I believe the applicant's going to go over it. The applicant proposed revisions to the plan as shown here. So they have done a little bit more detailed work in terms of, revising their layout. They have added it's about a ½ acre park here in this location shown in light green. The track C would remain in this different colored green. Pedestrian walkways, 1 pedestrian walkway here into the open space, and 1 here with a connection to Murdoch Road. And then they did provide some detail in terms of what this open space would look like. They were agreeable to the nature play center. They provided some detail here, benches and a landscaped area and a gazebo. All of this in here is grass. This area out here is landscaped area. And I sent this in a note via email, but just to clarify what this would actually look like, there is some slope here, and so this would be a boulder retaining wall or some type of retaining wall. The difference between this area and the street, in my estimation, is about 10 feet. Probably gets a little bit lower, so 2 to 3 feet here, and then you continue to increase in height to about 10 feet. So the park would sit down below this road and then even out to street level over here. But I'll let the applicant share more. In terms of your alternatives this evening, you can deny the application based on the findings in attachment 1 to the memo, approve the application based on the findings in attachment 2, and adopt the full findings and conditions provided as Exhibit 1 to the ordinance. So we do have a full updated staff report for adoption based on the council request. We would want to clarify in that if you would like the restroom added, and if you would want any parking spaces added. Those are not included in that, so we'd want direction on whether or not you'd want the bathroom and the parking added. And then the final option would be to approve the application with additional revisions in either direction to the findings in attachment 2. And in that case, depending on how much change there is, we may need to go back update the staff report, the ordinance, bring it back to you for final adoption. We do not need to keep the public record open. We've gotten through, this would be the second hearing, so you can close it this evening, direct staff on, the final direction, and come back for final adoption. If you wanted to keep the record open for additional testimony, you could do that likely as well, but not necessary. And so just a quick rundown of the schedule. We do have one additional meeting date on the regular schedule for council. It'll be the first meeting in March if you feel like more time is needed or you need staff to come back with changes. Happy to answer any questions.
I have after? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get and move on to applicants' presentation. Hi there. Welcome to the meeting again.
I'm Jennifer Arnold with the Murio Design at 1500 Valley River Drive in Eugene, Suite 100.
Kenzie Roth, JT Roth Construction, 12600 Southwest 72nd Avenue, Portland, Oregon. Also, just to note, I'm a resident of Sherwood.
Welcome.
So I'm not going to go over the whole project. I think you guys have seen that at least twice now. So now we're kind of going over our most recent submittal. Last meeting, we weren't able to have any discussion with you. After we got a couple questions answered, we were dismissed and you guys went on to deliberations, and then we heard what you wanted to see on the project. So we're hoping that we can meet in the middle. We can continue to have a discussion rather than answer two easy questions, dismiss us, and then find out all of these other things that we could have worked out or talked about. So we did come up with an alternative. It's not a full 1 acre park, but it is a half-acre park. We do still have the tract C. We did change the trail to a hard surface, and the trail connection on the full image that goes in between lots 17 and 18 is basically the midpoint between the last trail connection in the development to the south and where this one is to then where the cul-de-sac is. So there's equal pedestrian access points. So we thought that the spot right where we show the half-acre park was a pretty nice spot. It's right on the curve. You're gonna be basically stopped right there at an intersection if you're coming down the cul-de-sac, so thought you'd see it. It's also closer to the pedestrian crosswalk over the main road, so easy connection from one park to another. So anything you'd like to add to that one?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of take a step back and just so you guys can understand who I am and who we are. My dad started this company in '78. He fumbled his way to be a builder for 15 years. In our market, it's hard to build. It's hard to find lots. The only way we're successful is by developing, and he had to figure that out in the early 2000s, late 90s. It's important for us to I understand where you guys have to, stand up and do your thing. It's important for us to try to get as many lots as we can. We're builders by trade. We're not developers. We're going to develop the site, and we're going to build our homes, and it's important for us to get as many lots on this as we can. And I made that point last time. If there becomes a point where this just doesn't work for us, we'll pull the application, we'll sit on it, we'll do something else. I think what we're proposing here, I'm trying to meet you in the middle. You wanted a full acre and you wanted all these things. That doesn't pencil for us. It's expensive to do this. If you guys have been out there, it's going to take 180,000 cubic yards of dirt to make this site buildable. We're planning to reforest what Southeast Sherwood Master Plan wanted. No one told us to do that. That was our idea. I don't think we're getting credit for any of that. We're bringing the Street of Dreams this year to the city of Sherwood for the first time ever, and a site that we developed. And yeah, it might be a benefit for us,
but I think it's a benefit, bigger benefit for the city. We've cleaned up over 20 acres of contaminated soils. Yeah, we got paid for it, but it didn't cover half of what it costs to do it. I think what we're bringing to your city and what we've done in the past, I would think you guys could work with us a little bit instead of, demanding, it's the last project in Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, and now all of a sudden we need a park and we need this and we need that and we need all these other extra amenities. I get it. We use the same formula, the same design, the same things that we did in the other sites to submit it the first time, and you guys shot it down. And to be frank with you, we started out with 34 lots with Eric, and Eric said, nope, try again. We brought it down to 32. He said, I think this will work. We met all the criteria. We submitted it, and then you guys, commission said, nope, we need more. And you guys said, nope, we need even more. At a certain point, this just doesn't work for us. We're trying to do right. We're being good stewards of the land. We're a small family-run building company. It's me, my brother, he was a Sherwood resident, is in the audience, my mom. This is important for us to continue on as builders. Otherwise, it's just going to be national home builders that come into our market and just take over. So I think what we have submitted and what we're proposing, I'm hoping you guys can see this. We're trying to meet you in the middle. It's not exactly what you wanted, but we're trying to work with you. And like Jennifer said, I would hope that if there's any comments, questions, any of it, all of them, please do it during open testimony and don't close it and then start talking about it and then we can't address things because that's unfair. And that happened last time. That's all I have.
I did want to point out that we did include a lot of those same amenities that you wanted, like the play area, the gazebo, more walking paths and landscaping. So we did include those amenities and benefits as well.
I'm just trying to vision that park and what Eric was saying, the retaining wall and how far down that. I'm not a visual person like seeing from my maps. I'm just trying to figure out that park's like down below and then there's these walls. What, can you describe it a little bit better for me?
Well, you can see the park, or you can see the boulders outlined there. It is probably about 10 feet from the base level of the park. The base level of the park, it's about 10 feet to the top of where that street is up there. But as you can see the boulders, I think on the left, they'll probably die down to zero. So where the cul-de-sac is, it's kind of down and there's a cul-de-sac and that's where the park would be, is right there off to the right.
Okay.
So, a little bit of history here.
I remember you from the commission meetings.
Yeah, so I think I was on planning commission for the first PUD in Southeast Sherwood and maybe the second one, and then I've been on council for the remainder. And, what I recall throughout the process is as the first one came in, we were concerned, where's the parkland? Well, it's going to be in the next one. And then we get to the next one. It's like, well, it's going to be the next one. And we get to the next one. It's like, well, it's going to be in the next one. So now here we are kind of the end of the road. And that vision that if you look at Southeast Sherwood Master Plan as a whole, hasn't really been, the park aspect of it hasn't really been accomplished. And I think that's what you heard at commission, planning commission, and probably some of what you're hearing here. And, that I think is the frustration, looking at it from the city's point of view, right? Like the master plan had this really nice park in it, and we never got the park because it was kind of came in all piecemeal, and every one, it was a defensible reason why 20 lots or 15 lots or however many they were, and each one of those pieces didn't support the building of a full park. But now here we are at the end of the road, and where's the park, right? So I think that's kind of why we're at the point we're at now. So if we want to really be frank and honest about the whole history here, I do think there's room for compromise, though. I think and one of my questions for city staff will be, I don't really understand. I wasn't here last week, so maybe it was well explained, but or 2 weeks ago. I don't understand why they need a second access point to that trail. That seems like overkill to me, but maybe some other people on the council will explain that to me, because I kind of agree with you. The one in the midpoint seems
It's
like
actually
enough.
like the third on that street.
Yeah, because there's another one around on the other.
Two of them in the previous.
Right, right. So what you propose from having one versus two that I saw in the city's proposal, that seems like an agreeable compromise to me. I don't see why it's onerous for someone to walk an extra 4 lots if they want to get up to the trail. For me personally, I would see, I don't know what we do in our other parks in this city. Like, not all of them have bathrooms. Like, what's the threshold where we start requiring a bathroom? Does that pencil out here? Maybe we just say it's plumbed for a future bathroom and we don't require it to be built up front. Those are things we can all talk about. But I think there's room for compromise, or same with the parking. I would be more inclined to say, since the bulk of the users of this are going to be people that live in this community, I'd be more inclined to say, you guys decide if you want the parking or not. If you want to if you feel like having the parking is more beneficial to the people you're going to sell these homes to than having people park on the street, that's a choice I'm happy to let you all make. But again, other people may disagree on that one, and we'll get to those deliberations. So, I guess my question is, kind of help me understand where, so I'm trying to lay out to you where I've seen the history of not getting this amenity that was in the concept plan, and we've seen that all play out. Like, what's your point of view on why we should accept that?
Yeah, well, so, as you all know, the master plan was done from a bird's eye view, not taking any topography in play. They put houses where houses can never be built because it's literally, a straight cliff. So that master plan, I'm sorry, but it was flawed to begin with. And it's my understanding every time we've done these PUDs, you have to do them piece by piece. You have to look at it piece by piece. Well, there's no park on the Mosier piece, but now you want a park. The park was on the last project we did. And it's my understanding that's how these are supposed to be looked at. And also, you have to understand that the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan assumed that all these properties would be developed at the same time. They took 75% of the open space and they shoved it in the corner of the Mosier property because that's where the grove of trees were. The grove of trees aren't there anymore, so what's the point of, preserving 4.5 acres of nothing now? And we're going to replant it. We're going to bring back that vision of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. So, those are my comments, my arguments. It's just, originally, they thought all these pieces were going to be developed at the same time. Well, that's, in our market, that's kind of impossible.
Did any of the previous PUDs include a park?
The last one included the open space.
But not a park?
No, but what I also mentioned was, it's my understanding when you look at these, you have to look at the Mosier property compared to the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan Mosier property. There was no park on the Mosier property. The park was on the peak where Brad Miller, the last applicant, that's where his personal house is, and that's where the park was. And I think you guys mentioned you were going to try to tell him to tear down his house and put a park there, and he said, that's my personal house. Brad Miller still lives there. I'm his neighbor. I live in the area. So, and he was the last applicant. We applied Denali Summit together in conjunction, us and our 10 acres and his 5 acres. We did those together, and that's on the Southeast Shore Master Plan. That's where the park is. It's back on that application. And you guys didn't get it there, and I wasn't for the meetings. I didn't hear the pros and cons. But now, we're at our last meeting, and you want a park. Okay, well, I'm trying to work with you on a park.
And I appreciate that.
And I'm telling you, if this doesn't work, then it's not going to work for me.
I don't have a question, but just a comment that I'm absolutely looking at this as an individual PUD and ignoring the other elements of that side of the town. So.
Yeah, and I am too. I think the history is important, even though it's not a part of the decision criteria. But I will say, just looking at this at an individual PUD, a big part of the PUD process is what's the public benefit that the city and the public is receiving in exchange for the other, the other concessions, if you will, that we're making. Obviously going up from the 2 units per acre to 3 in this case, or potentially as high as 4. So I think it's reasonable for us to ask for that public benefit and for us to make a stand for it. But I think there's room to compromise. So
just a note on that. We just used the same formula. We kept the looping trail. We applied the same landscaping, the same design. The benefit of bringing the forest back, nature watching, bringing nature back. It's that. We're just using the same formula that we use on the other sites, and we're giving you a looping trail. I think that was the vision, was just kind of bringing nature back to the neighborhoods. And that's what we did on the last submission 2 weeks ago, but was shot down and we changed it. You know, we're trying to meet you in the middle here.
Mayor, I'm interested, do we have any proponents or
Yeah,
opponents?
so, well, just real quick, Kim, did you have any questions?
No, I don't mind. But I'm going to ask Ryan. I just want to, you went through the whole process. I want to make sure that we don't close them out of further discussion like they felt
Well,
like
that's
we
why
had
we're
last
having
time.
some discussion now, so, yeah.
Okay.
Dan, did you have a question?
With that half-acre park that you're proposing, what is the total open space acreage then? What does it end up being?
21.3%.
Do you have a number? Sorry.
115,000 square feet. 2.5-ish. 40, it's 2 point, maybe 8. Eric, you got a calculator?
Okay, because 2 weeks ago we talked and you heard us, the issue was the open space. And the master plan called for a little over 4 acres of open space. And I understand that the grove of trees is not there anymore, but open space is still open space for the community. And like that was our biggest issue with this. And for, like, we're not even at 3 acres of what the open space should be. I understand that you've...
That 4.5 acres is just a grove of trees for open space, though. I mean, there's more usable open space with this design, this most recent update.
Absolutely, yes, there's more open space, but we're still, I feel, well shy of what the intended open space was for this area.
Well, I mean, you also understand, like I said, they concentrated 75% of the open space on the Mosier property because they brought all of those properties in at the same time. They thought they were going to be developed at the same time, and they're not.
But they weren't, and you understood that, and you understood what the requirements were of this area prior to even submitting the application. And so what is your reason why you don't have that required open space at this point?
Because you also have to understand that the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan was never adopted, right? You have to use it as criteria. It's subjective,
Okay.
100% subjective. There is no criteria that says X, Y, and Z. You have to do this, you have to do that. So, right, we just assumed the same formula that we used on the other sites. We're well over the required open space for PUDs in the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. We are bringing back some visions from the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. You're right, we're not matching it 100%, but we're trying to do the best we can to make this site feasible and give you guys a beautiful site and a beautiful park and a beautiful open space and a beautiful walking trails and gazebos and benches and tables and signage. I mean, that was all of that other stuff wasn't in this Southeast Shore Master or the
Right,
Master Plan.
right. Sure, but the public benefit was still part of that. No?
The public benefit in the Southeast Shore Master Plan was a forest. That's it.
And a park.
Not on this site. If he's
So-
talking about this site individually.
Mayor?
So I'll take care of it. So I think at this point, everyone's had a chance to ask. I want to make sure you had a chance to hear from us and talk about it. But at this point, I want to move on to testimony from advocates. And I think we may have, do we have a couple? Thank you very much.
Not sure which way.
So I've got, Jennifer Arnold, I'm assuming you're in, you're, okay, so you're a proponent, so you want to go ahead and come up?
No, that's Jennifer is staff of Emilio.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. They handed me a piece of paper and I read it and misread it. So we have one, R clause, Jim? And Jim, are you speaking opposed or a proponent?
Talk about no good deed going unpunished. Boy. Robert James Claus, 22211 Southwest Pacific Highway. Now, I'm going to make some statements, and you can verify them because you have 30 days to dispute them. You have done nothing with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to check how you're impacting the refuge. Now, the reason I say that is because it was the beautiful Germans that came up with the planning model we use, which is residential in its various forms, retail, commercial, and industrial. And because the Germans own the game, they do not bother to regulate for game. So Minneapolis St. Paul had a refuge, and they've done some wonderful things with it. And there's one other, but the refuge was grown around. This is the first National Wildlife Refuge that was ever established, ever, in a non-hunting area. And you guys went in, and you're now affecting its water table. The refuge manager was originally here when you put in that mess down on Rock Creek, resigned, and went to Montana. He said they don't care what they do to quality of water. Now, have you contacted the Fish and Wildlife on this refuge to get comment? Because if you know anything about enabling statutes, which I'm sure you don't, they can't come to you to comment. The part of the Department of Interior, you have to go to them. I'll take it the answer is no. You can check and get back to me if I'm wrong. Now, number two, J.C. Reeves was the guy that built the subdivision up above. Kenny Riggs was the man that lived there. Now, most of you do not know Link Tannery. Link Tannery dumped their material up there. Now, it's not my business, and therefore I'm just going to put this in the record, that you have done nothing to investigate any of the chemicals you may be breaking loose in that area, as Reeves didn't. Now, the reason I say that is, this will be beyond your comprehension, but try it. Ducks and fish should have total dissolved salt as parts per million of 150. We live with 350. You try to put our crap on them, you kill them. And that's what we're doing. You're killing the Pacific Flyway. And you're giving no consideration whatsoever to what's doing when you put in your roads or anything else in the back to the water table. Now, I say that because luckily a group that I'm working with are back in Washington, D.C. right now. And I told them this, I now have absolute confirmation. There is not one word of testing or wrecking on what you're doing or what this guy could do to preserve that and enhance that, and he could still build, because you're coming at us ass backwards. That's the scablands, for heaven's sakes. Most of you don't even know how that happened. I know, it's an accident. Sherwood just popped up one day. That's why we got all the trees here we've got in eastern Oregon. It's because we're brought down by glacier, and that's what the scablands refers to. Now, what am I telling you? You took this refuge over, and you were on the board for a long time. That was an indication it's going to be destroyed, because then you get on, it gets destroyed. Give you time. Brings Walmart here, the demographics do not match this town. They're exactly opposite of it. And then he used urban renewal money to put it in. Now, why don't we take some of that money and go over there and do some water checking? You might get a shock, and you might actually be planning an environment that we can all live in instead of living in an Ohio train wreck chemical mess. So I'll take it to the mess. I'll tell them when they meet with the Fish and Wildlife, no, they're not doing any testing. They didn't do for Reeves. They're not doing any testing any other way. And they think pushing into a refuge without talking to the Fish and Wildlife is an informed way to do business with an agency that must have a request before they can comment.
Thank you, Jim. All right, do we have anyone else that wants to testify as an advocate or an opponent? Anybody remote? Nothing. Okay. Great. Does the applicant want to respond?
Just for purposes of the record, is there anybody that wants to testify neutral as well?
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Appreciate it. Any? Nope. Welcome back. And sorry for the confusion on your sheet. So.
No. It's the only jurisdiction I've had to sign in as the applicant. So the remainder of our time is for rebuttal, but we didn't have anyone come out against it, so just more questions, answers, discussions with you.
Do we have?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just curious what you thought of staff's proposed plan.
I have spoken with Eric about it. again, there just becomes a time where this isn't feasible for us. And his plan with 1 full acre isn't feasible. And I'll hand out something now, but this is kind of, these are my options. This lays it out. There's 3 options. Sorry. One's for me. There's pretty much 3 options. It's the one we first submitted with some minor conditions, whatever you want. There's the next one that we've submitted, which would be approval. And option 3 is for me to pull my permit, pull my application, and I will just go to underlying zoning, VLDR, which we estimate we could get about 10 1-acre lots, and I'll just build cottage clusters. And that's it. This is a business decision. I have a business to run, and I have to do what's smart for the business. With cottage clusters, you get 5% open space. There's no parks. There's nothing. There's no looping trail. There's literally nothing. There's going to be 5% open space for the cottage owners and users to use, and that's it.
Question?
Cottage clusters would be incredibly popular.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a big fan of that.
Fortunately, I don't agree that's the highest and best use for this property.
I'm not saying it is.
Right.
I'm responding to your lack of a better word, threat.
It's not a threat. It's just those are my options.
Right. So I think Councilor Young made a good question. I don't know if you really responded adequately, but Eric's suggestion would impact potentially 2 lots. There might be room for compromise on his proposal. And losing 2 lots in a different way is what you're proposing. But the net public benefit, instead of your proposed park, is closer to a 1-acre lot or a 1-acre park. So if you're able to get probably the same number of lots with a half-acre lot or a 1-acre park, the same number of lots with a 1-acre park, I would think the community would say, let's get the 1-acre park.
Well, it's not just about losing lots, but it's also about the cost that is involved with building all of the amenities. I mean, it just becomes, again, financially, it does not become feasible for us.
So the only amenity different that Eric's proposal is suggesting versus yours is a hard surface play structure, court, sports court.
And possibly restrooms, right? Yep.
And if you listen to what I suggested last time, if we went down the road of a restroom, having the city pay for it, potentially. So literally, your proposed park, in many ways, is more expensive because you're building retaining walls.
It has to be there anyways.
So from my desk, makes a lot more sense. 1-acre lot for a park, and probably the same number of lots versus a half-acre, which is really not a half-acre park from your proposal. Really simple.
How was it not a half-acre? It was a half-acre.
So you're suggesting a half-acre with 30 lots.
And honestly, I would like the option and the ability to be able to add another lot in there if we can put those on easements. So technically, I would get one back, 31 lots with a half-acre park.
Yeah. So I think, and I'll suggest it as Councilor Scott suggested, debate the argument of having 2 access points on this project. If you remove one, that is that's another
15 feet.
15,000 square feet?
15 feet of street frontage.
It's 15 feet of width, but the depth is 100?
15 times 80.
1,500.
90.
Whatever the square footage is, to add back into potential lots. So when we close the public hearing, I'm going to have a conversation with my colleagues, and I think we give you a very good project. We would get a very good public benefit for this neighborhood, and decide on what amenities would go in the park. How they pay for them.
Yeah, sorry.
So, I'm just trying to, come up with some ideas, some compromise. I still think removing one of those access trails is a good. You have one off the cul-de-sac, and you have one at the turn there. That one in between just seems really unnecessary to me. So I'd give that feedback, and then maybe split the park difference in half, 3/4 of an acre, right? So we kind of meet in the middle, and we can talk about the required amenities in there. But that's kind of maybe where I'm at a disadvantage because I wasn't here for the previous deliberations. I obviously watched them on TV, but I'm just trying to find some middle ground here that maybe could get this to approval, and maybe that's the middle ground that I can live with, and maybe others can live with. And personally, I'm not, and I've said this from the beginning, I don't want to prescribe a location, right? I want to say 3 acres park. You guys figure out the best place to put that. If you guys want parking spots, you build them. If you don't, you don't. But I think, certainly a minimum number of amenities. I don't think we necessarily need a court, but the other stuff, I think I like what you said about the restrooms. Build them, we'll pay for them. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think that's kind of equitable compared to how a lot of other community parks have been built in Sherwood. I appreciate the change to the hardscaped path. I think that's important. So, and the reforesting, I think those are good points that you make. So that's what I'm thinking. I feel like that's a good maybe way to might force us to come back in 2 weeks because it's a lot of changes, but at least it's a path forward. But, Dan?
For the trail that you have proposed in between the 2 lots, do you know what the elevation changes from the street to the trail?
On the new one that we submitted?
Correct, yes, just the one that looks essentially straight instead of the switchback one that was before.
Good question.
10%.
10% grade on the trail?
Do you know what the actual elevation from the street to the top, to the beginning of the trail connection is? It is only 10 feet difference.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, it's maybe 10 to 12.
I don't understand, because before we talked about doing a switchback because the elevation was,
That'd be 5% for ADA.
and that was enough of a difference to, okay. Well, that's not as much as I thought it was going to be. I was going to say, because we can just scrap that if the elevation changes too significant. Like, if it's just straight stairs up to get additional land back there as well.
It's also, 150 feet long, so you can make up that 12 feet.
Okay.
So I'd move to close the public hearing.
So I have a few things before we do that. Unless there's a second one,
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you. So I'm just, so when you looked at the city's, the proposal Eric put together based on our comments from last time for an acre park that's mainly flat, did you look at the gain or the difference in square feet and looked at reconfiguring these lots to see if you could get additional lots in?
I saw this, I don't know. We had already kind of reconfigured ours, and then Eric said, well, we kind of just drew some, kind of did our own thing. So we had already done the work on reconfiguring ours, and then he sent over this packet, and that's where I saw it.
Right, because, you basically came back with a proposal to give up 2 lots. The staff put together a 4-lot, 1-acre proposal, and when they put that together, they just expanded lots 20 and 21 and made them a lot bigger because we don't have that pie-shaped wedge anymore. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, if you look at all those lots, of course, meeting the code standards for street frontage and 10,000 square foot minimums, is it really losing 4 lots? Are you still just losing 2, or is it just 3? I guess
I bet she's losing. I bet you I could redo this.
Well, I'm asking him, so.
Make it you lose only 1 and be legal.
It's a challenge then, right?
Worst case 2. Worst case.
But that's what.
Even though Eric's estimation came up, he's adding square footage in the back of lots that's not going to benefit us to get a lot. He's adding easements along the backside of lots.
Well, it makes
it a legal lot.
21. That's
as long as you're not.
You're not going to squeeze another lot in there. It's just not feasible. It's not buildable. We're going to build on these in the end, so we want to make sure we develop a site that we have good house pads to build a good house on.
If you narrowed the lots, I think you have to. There's a certain width you have to.
Right,
hit.
60 feet is minimum.
60 feet. If you narrowed them, that extra room in the back gives you the ability to still hit the 10,000 square foot minimum. That's where I'm going, if you looked at that at all.
I understand I understand that, yes. And that's where I was kind of saying, you know, if I give you that half acre, I can still play around with lots on the other submitted, more recent design we gave you on lots 11 through 17. If we had easements along the back of those, make them 60 feet wide and make them deeper and put easements on the back of the path, I might be able to squeeze another lot in there. So, you know, I'm really only losing one lot in that case. And I mean, Mr. Mays, you made a comment last time. Let's try to make him not lose lots.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're doing our best to try to redesign this thing, keep these the lots and the pads buildable. I'm not trying to put in some funky shaped lot that you just can't build a house on.
Yeah. So, you have more questions?
I do. So I don't want to waste. I want to give you an opportunity to respond before we go into deliberations.
I appreciate it.
Is my 3/4 of an acre and removing that second access point, is that something you guys would be agreeable to, or would I be wasting my time deliberating that with my?
But just removing that second access piece is not going to give us enough.
No, but I also said going to 3/4 acres. So we're kind of splitting the difference between your half acre proposal and our 1 acre proposal. I just don't want to waste my time trying to convince my fellow counselors to
But to be clear,
agree with that if you're not agreeable.
I would add to that usable 3/4, because with their design, there are slopes in there and landscaping that's not usable.
Fair.
I'd also add that, well, you weren't here 2 weeks ago, and when you said you didn't want to dictate where they put the park, we talked a lot about making sure the park was closer this way than way in the back. As part of the public benefit is access for the general public. Granted, it will most likely be used just by this development and the ones around it, but having it accessible.
Any other question?
Doug asked a question, waiting for an answer, then I'll move to close the hearing.
Oh, sorry.
3/4 is. I would have to figure out how we could squeeze. I mean, where would we put that, and how we could make that work. You could push for it, and we'll try to do our best to accommodate it. And I appreciate that, because, trying to keep this project as designed alive, and, I think I'm trying to meet you guys in the middle here.
Any other questions?
I'll move to close.
Yeah.
You still have 10
Mr.
minutes
Mayor?
left, so.
Taylor's.
Oh, Taylor, I'm sorry. We don't see your hand here. I apologize, Taylor.
That's all right. So I
withdraw my motion.
echo Councilor Scott's opinion of, first of all, I love that, you're wanting to develop things. I love the addition of the hard surface to make it match the rest of the trail. I think that the bigger Central Park, I'm actually okay with removing the hard surface as well for a court. Again, there's other types of parks, and I just wanted you to know that whether or not it pencils out for you is not my top concern. One, I'm trying to make sure that the city is getting what they has the public benefit. Frankly, I love the idea of cottage housing, and if you were to present that, I would encourage you 100% in developing that if you think that you could be an example in the community of that for different types of housing. And I just wanted to put that on the record to you as well. I'm not doing this. We'll have a discussion here in a minute with the council, but it's not doing it because we don't want development. It's just we're trying to make sure that the city is getting the benefit that we've promised by saying that when we develop, we'll make sure there's a public benefit if there's exceptions. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Taylor. And I would just add on that too. I'm a big fan of cottage clusters. We have a middle housing problem in Sherwood, so that would be huge. It's the unicorn in Sherwood is that single level home, for the people that want to age in place in Sherwood and for starter families, and that is a big challenge for our community. And when you talk about public good, for these projects, those are the types of things I think about. Is how is this going to benefit our overall community provide housing choice. I mean, I appreciate that you guys have got to make this pencil out, but we have to think of those bigger issues too for our community. So,
I understand that, yeah.
so I have
Got
8
the other time left.
Yeah, you have 8 minutes left if you have some more you want to present.
I'd still like to be able to squeeze something.
I don't know.
So if you look at lot 13 on our more recent proposal, that's lot 13. What is that? Where's the lot number on that? Lot 8, 6, 7, 8. That's not legal. Lot 11. We could redesign the entrance to lot 10 and probably give up 10,000 square feet in that area because it's adjacent to Track D. I would still appreciate being able to work with the city on adjusting dimensions on lots 11 and 17 and adding an easement in the back for the path.
So are you saying that lot 11 would be added to the existing proposed park and that would become a bigger park? Does the grade allow for any of that to be usable and contiguous with the usable portion of the proposed park?
It's all level with.
So the retaining wall would just extend further around, or the whatever you're calling that.
Yeah, we'll make it flat. But to say something to make it. But lots, the building pads on lots 12, 11, and 10 are pretty much level.
I think that my follow-up to that would be, if you go to your proposed park, can you go to that, Eric? So,
This is, okay, good.
you know, so it's a half acre, but half of it's really the park, right? And the rest is sloped by the looks of this, correct me if I'm wrong. Is the half acre the light colored part?
It's all, the whole thing is a half acre.
Right, but I'm picturing in my mind that a lot of that, oh, you're saying that's all flat, that all that grassed area inside the stone is all flat. Okay,
And
okay,
everything
perfect.
on the outside of that loop,
Okay.
that round,
I gotcha.
everything
Yeah.
like bark dust and trees and shrubs
Yeah.
and plants and, you know.
Okay, so you've got some grass area and some landscaping and whatnot,
So
so.
what's the acreage of the grass and the play area then?
Play area, I think, was 2,500 square feet. Around 3,000, something. And then I don't have a calculation on the grass and the bark dust areas and the sod area.
Yeah.
It looks like it's about half of the half acre, so a little bit less, so less than a quarter acre
Less than a
of
quarter
grass and play.
Just under, yeah,
Under a quarter.
under a quarter.
So go back to what they submitted to us, the map. Yeah, that one. And lot 10 is here, that's.
The park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where the cursor is now, that's lot 11. So we would just.
This one is lot 11.
Oh,
Is this
these
one
are
10?
labeled wrong then. Oh, that's 10. Sorry.
Okay, so one more time, explain what you said.
So we would just, we would adjust the entrance on lot 9 just to make it straight, and then just pretty much add lot 10 to the park.
So lot 10 is this one here where the cursor is?
Oh, okay, that helps. I was
Okay.
picturing 11 on this
Sorry.
picture.
So
Okay,
that
okay.
area, so straighten that and add that to the park.
Lot 9 would have a wider entrance.
Mm-hmm.
I move to close the public hearing. Oh, they got 5 minutes left. I
They got
apologize.
5 minutes. Yeah, please be patient.
Okay, so.
Well, after we
You
close
withdraw your
public
motion?
hearing, we
Yeah,
we
we can't.
can't reopen it if we have more questions for
I'll
them?
draw.
Is that right?
Yep.
If we close public hearing and then we deliberate and we have more questions for them, or they want to answer, we can't bring them back?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be at our discretion. All right. Did you have anything else?
I don't think so.
Hoping for a decision.
Awesome. Thank you for bearing with all our questions. So at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we are going to move on and deliberate. Well, first we'll ask questions to staff and deliberate. So, questions?
Oh, I'll ask my first question, which was, what was the driver behind adding that second path, and why do we see that? That seems extraneous to me, so I'm curious, like, why that is.
Just giving, so with the tracks being converted to easements, there was really no change to the lot. There was no hit to lot area, and so just better circulation. The underlying code is pretty strict. Every 300 feet, it wants a connection into the open space, so it got us a little bit closer to that. But if you guys are happy without it, certainly not needed. The nice part about the PUD is that you can use your discretion on that. It was just because the lot area was going back, and so it provided more opportunity.
Yeah, so it literally did not impact the lots by having that other one. So that's why there's no gain to.
But if the removal of it allows them to beef up the park and still potentially lose one less lot because of the frontage requirement, then.
And I mean, it by removing it, it benefits lot 16 and 17 so that there's a wider potential building footprint.
Right, but you could also see where, potentially 20 and 21 could be shrunk down a little bit, and you could make a little more space
right.
somewhere else and squeeze another
Right.
lot
I mean,
in.
if this was my project, I'd be reconfiguring this whole thing, regardless of what the city council decided on, if there was an approval, just to help maximize the lots, because there are clearly opportunities to add lots by narrowing any lot that is wider
more than the minimum. Yeah.
Than the minimum.
Although that doesn't necessarily lead to a desirable result automatically, either from the city's standpoint too. But
it's the minimum in this configuration is a 60-foot width.
I understand that.
Lot. So, I'm an advocate of getting something that is already a compromise and doesn't actually. It's a compromise from the Southeast Master Plan, which was the proposal of a 1 acre lot. So I'm an advocate of that. I'm an advocate of the staff's location because it actually has opportunities for people to access by parking along the street. It's closer for everybody on both parts of this project to be able to walk to and benefit from. I think at the end of the day that they should be able to get 30 or 31 lots still. And it's a good project. And if they choose not to move forward, they have alternatives, as they've even expressed. Some which members of council have said they'd almost prefer.
I have a question for staff on that, just out of curiosity. Under that underlining zoning with 1 acre lots, how many cottage clusters could you put on a 1 acre lot?
I have to do that research, maybe with some help from Erica. So the underlying zone, again, 1 acre, and then, we just go straight to the underlying cottage cluster zone. So off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but we can get it for you.
I could have answered this a year ago, but I forgot.
And I appreciate Councilor Scott's point. I would rather be more direct on the location of the park instead of. So if you did the 10, 11, 12, or however you want to number the lots, everybody would have to go into the cul-de-sac to gain access to the park because you've got a 10-foot drop at the street on a big part of it. Cul-de-sac lots are usually more desirable for people, for families, than lots on a corner, and so that makes sense, park-wise, because
to me, it's not my determination to decide, or ours to decide, which is more desirable or what isn't more desirable, or where the developer and their potential customers would rather have a lot versus rather have a park. I mean, to me, access-wise, both those locations are fairly similar, to Murdoch, for example, and to people walking from Murdoch and whatever. So, and to the rest of the community around it. So, I don't want to be that prescriptive personally, but I hear your point. So, Eric, I have a question. For as far as what is the difference between the park amenities that we had proposed in our most recent example that you're looking at right now on the screen and what they proposed in theirs? I know they both have a playground, some benches and a gazebo. What additionally did we have penciled in? Obviously, the court and bathrooms, is that it?
Yeah.
Potentially, but
Yeah, so half acre difference currently in size.
Yeah, yeah.
And then sports court, and then that is required in the condition as written, and then optional would be bathroom and parking. So yes, sports court, bathroom, parking.
Okay. So I'll just kind of lay my thought on the table is what I would throw out there is removal of the second access way, the reduction of the park requirement from 1 acre to 3/4 of an acre, playground, some sort of covered structure, a sport court, and the bathrooms, but the bathrooms being paid for by the city. And I would say parking would be at the discretion of the builder. It's their development. If they want parking, they can build parking. If they don't, then they don't have to. That's my proposal.
Dan?
If we take the lots 10, 11, and 12 on this screen for the potentially expanded park, the parking in the cul-de-sac, I think, like, it being non-central would be an issue as well with the retaining wall and whatnot. So the placement of the park where the staff has it, that would be my preference. I don't know if that's feasible for you to switch the lots in that regard if you're going to use 3 lots for that. That would be the only thing.
Kim?
on Tim's proposal, if I might, Tim, with your proposal, was the developer put the bathroom in, or would the city put the bathroom in, pay for the bathroom?
Well, first of all, you're talking Doug,
Yeah.
not Tim.
The developer would build it, but the city would pay for it. I think that's in line with a lot of the other parks that we've done in the city.
That's all right.
Sorry, pay for the maintenance, or what do you mean?
Well, don't parks normally get dedicated to the city after
This
they're
would
built?
be HOA owned and maintained.
Okay, okay. Then no, we wouldn't.
But
We wouldn't own
Well,
the
there could be an
maintenance.
agreement to maintain the bathroom.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Well, what I'd recommend, if I can just interject here, is probably, if you're going down this route, have the developer put in the utilities and the grade, all of that stuff, have the city put down the actual pay for and put down the actual restroom with the hookups by the developer.
I'll let the experts dictate that.
This is a hard one because I think what you've done here is in line with that whole community out there, the other 3 or 4 phases. So as much as I would like cottage clusters somewhere in Sherwood, I'm just not sure that would gel out there. So that's not my desire, is to force your hand to do something else. I like the idea of where staff has proposed the park go, even if it's a 3/4, and I don't know if that could also work for you. I'm not totally opposed to your suggestion of adding the lot 10 to make that more 3/4 acre-ish. My preference would be where staff is, just for the location and whatnot. And I also would be in favor of the city paying for the bathroom and maintaining the bathroom for the HOA.
Yeah, I was getting there. Taylor?
I'm in alignment probably with Kim and Doug and Dan. I feel like if I had to rank them, first priority or first choice would be cottage clusters there. I think they would look great out there. I think it would be a showcase and all the other stuff. Now, it feels a little bit like changing horses midstream. So just know I want to encourage all the developers who may listen back to this. I think that the park placement that the city has is a better location. I think it's a better benefit to the city, but I wouldn't vote. I also don't want to prescribe it, right? So I'm saying that if they're going to do some of the other things, I feel like with where their lot is and the size of it for the park, it's too much of a compromise where you can't have even the option for a sports court or the parking, parking in a cul-de-sac, and it just feels like it's going to be a very crowded area there. But again, I'll let the developer make that decision. I feel like it feels like we're almost there, right? I don't know, like if you're going to hold if I have to vote tonight, I would probably vote for it, but I would love some of these adjustments to be made if we can somehow get those in there. I don't know if we can do it with conditions or if that's even something they'd be interested in. I couldn't quite hear when Doug asked if it would be a possibility. I think that if again, if you made me vote tonight, I would rather say, hey, let's see the adjustments that Doug suggested and see it again in 2 weeks.
So I have a couple questions and a couple comments. The grade on, what is that, Southwest Byers Lake Terrace Road, that's 8%, correct? Do you know what the grade is on that?
I'm not sure exactly what the grade is. I mean, it's certainly going to slope. This is going to be the high point, and it's going to continually slope.
I'm talking about the road that goes down into the cul-de-sac.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I remember
That was 10 feet.
I was looking at the profiles, and I think even the cul-de-sac is on a 2% grade, if I remember the profiles correctly. And it's a 28-foot street?
It's a 56-foot right-of-way, so our previous standard of, I think it's 26 feet of road.
Right. So one side's going to be fire zone, no parking.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's problematic with people driving to that park and parking down there, because you're going to have limited parking with the street widths already. So having a large amount of frontage for parking, I think is a really good idea, and it's going to minimize conflict in the neighborhoods down the road, especially with that grade. I mean, I can imagine kids, if it snows, that's going to be the hill they go to over there, right? And slide down that road. So I'm in favor of keeping the park on the through street, making sure we have plenty of frontage for cars to park along there. I think I'm willing to consider 3/4 of an acre versus 4 acres. Or I'm sorry, versus 4 acres. Can we do 4 acres?
3 lots versus 4 lots.
3 lots versus 4 lots. But I go back to, originally we had, on our master plan, 4 acres of open space. So I think with this particular plan, I think we're at 2.7, 2.75. Is that correct? Total?
The way the condition's written is 1.75 in track C plus it would be 1 acre as written now.
So 2.75.
2.75
acres, which is
0.5 if we went down.
2.5, which is still quite a bit under what we envisioned in the concept plan as we went. So it's a PUD. There needs to be public benefit. I think an ask for a large park with some amenities and a sport court and a bathroom that we pay for is well within the realm of a reasonable request for a public amenity. And again, I'll go back to this is not the kind of housing that Sherwood needs right now, in terms of some of the challenges that we have in the community. So I don't view just putting in more houses as public benefit. So that's why I'm advocating that we have some parkland over there, and we keep kids on that side of the street and not crossing Burdock, which is a problem. So,
Mayor, to let you finish your thought, do you think there should be 2 access points off of Upper Roy to the trail?
I think that's fine. I think we can get that 15 feet back. I do have concerns about trails behind houses downslope or under retaining walls, where we've done that, other areas of the cities, we end up getting a lot of garbage. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I do have some concerns about that, but I think we could get rid of one of those trails for sure.
Connections? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the connections, yeah.
I'm fine with getting rid of one of the connections.
So.
Oh, I'd say we talked a lot about a sport court, and here it says full-size basketball court or full-size tennis court. I mean, there's other popular things in Sherwood as well, like soccer. It could be a grass soccer field.
Pickleball?
No pickleball. We don't want people showing up at city council arguing about the noise of the pickleball. But it could be a grassy soccer field. I mean, the sport court, of course, is an additional expense. But
So in the proposal from staff, it is a 20,000 square foot flat area that it is more or less with a lot of open space there, which I think it's a kind of a good mix, really.
I agree that I like the list of amenities, whether it's a 1 acre or a 0.75 acre, and I think the list of amenities I wouldn't change a lot. I mean, the square footage would have to change if we lowered it, but maybe we could be a little less prescriptive on the basketball court or tennis court. We could just say a sport facility of your choosing that has a minimum size of X, right? And if it's soccer, if it's baseball, if it's tennis, if it's basketball, let the developer decide that a little bit more.
Yeah, my feeling is we've got a lot of empty sport courts in Sherwood. I would love to see some different kind of sport activity there. You know, put a lawn bowling place in there, put a horseshoe
Bocce.
pit. Yeah, bocce. I mean,
So that's
seriously.
Councilor Giles, the sports courts that are near my home are busy virtually every hour they're allowed, it seems like, just because I can see them from my place. So I mean, maybe on school district property, which they manage and schedule, there are some quiet times, but since we don't manage and schedule those, we can't. That's not an amenity the community can use.
Yeah, and I think the basketball courts at Dump Truck Park in Woodhaven, or I guess that's technically Woodhaven Park,
are empty a lot.
Like it seems.
They're always empty when I drive by.
I see them getting used. So
I would defer. I'd be agreeable to defer to the Parks Board to approve whatever sport element.
Well, that's a good idea. So we say the developer can choose it conditional with the Parks Board approval, because we have a Parks Master Plan of amenities that we're looking to add.
I mean, as it is, there's language in here or the Planning Commission with Parks Board can show up to the Planning Commission and give input or something. Tell Eric what's possible or not.
The formal body and final decision maker would be Planning Commission, but if you wanted to take an extra step and send this to the Parks Board,
I had a different thought.
We could do that. They would advise Planning Commission for the final decision.
Another thought is the Parks Board and this City Council recently approved the Parks Master Plan. It has a list of things that the community's looking for in it. Pick from that list, and let the developer pick from that list, and then the Planning Commission will say, "Yep, you picked from the list." That way, it doesn't have that whole extra step and rigmarole.
Yeah, I mean, we could do the extra step. I don't know that it's needed, but if you felt like you wanted to send it to the advisory committee specific to parks, we could do that at an advisory level to Planning Commission.
Mayor, before we go any further, I apologize. Can we maybe entertain a motion to extend the
I
meeting?
make a motion to extend the meeting past 9:30 till 10 o'clock.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of extending the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
I knew that's where you were going.
Thanks.
It's only 12:30. We're at Taylor. You're fine.
My flight is 6 a.m., just so you know.
I am supportive of Planning Commission with the applicant. Planning Commission having to agree on the sports element.
That'd work for me too. Just so that we're not being prescriptive of two choices here.
But I definitely want to. So I'm going to make a motion on this that we ask staff to come back in 2 weeks with a final plan for approval, basically following staff's suggestion. Park, 1 acre park on lot, what is currently lot 29, 30, 31, 32. Removal of one of the access points off of Upper Roy to the trail. The park would have the amenities that you're suggesting, the sports element to be agreed by the Planning Commission, as well as the nature play plan. the city would, as staff put in there, would pay for, would install a bathroom that the city would be responsible for maintaining. And that's
Councilor Mays, did you
that's
just say 1 acre or?
Yep, 1 acre. It's lot 29, 30, 31, and 32. So I could be very specific on location. And that adds up to roughly 42,000 square feet. And therefore, it's centrally located, and I would designate that the parking on Roy, there would be on-street parking on Roy, assuming the applicant didn't want to put additional parking. I don't think they would. But assuming the applicant didn't want to do any 90-degree parking stalls, that the on-street parking would be along the street frontage.
On the south side of the road.
Yep.
Which means don't put fire hydrants over there. Yeah.
That's my motion for staff to come back for us to do a final action on the proposal.
Is there a second?
Do you not like that plan?
Yeah, I feel, I mean, my only concern on that is I'm not sure we're meeting them, you know, between the 1 acre and the half acre that they proposed. I feel like we're not quite, you know, meeting them in the middle there.
So if I had suggested an acre and a half 2 weeks ago,
no, I know.
So we have a motion. I'll go ahead and second it so we can have a discussion and a vote on it. If we need to modify it, we can. So any discussion on this?
I'm not in favor of that, but I would be in favor of keeping the compromise on the compromise, if you will, being prescriptive about the location, but reducing it to the 0.75. So staying in the location that the staff recommended on that corner.
And making it lot 30,
31,
31.
and 30, heading out 29, let them have that back. And then the other change we talked about to the sport amenity, the bathroom paid for by the city, and the removal of the second access point. That would be, I would have to make that as a counter motion, but that's what.
So that's your thoughts. That's his thought. So I'm curious.
So that would be 33,000 square feet, roughly. Okay.
I'm going to say 3/4 of an acre. So if they want to rejigger the line so it's different than 33,000, like as long as they're at the 3/4 of an acre. So.
Any other
thoughts on the proposal?
I'm going to go with Doug's compromise of the compromise, but be prescriptive. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So I know you want to say 3/4 of an acre. I'm more along the lines of being a little more specific so we can take advantage of that larger lot on the corner and get the park as large as possible. So, but we do need to have a vote. So
I'm not calling the. Dan, what do you think of the motion?
Sorry, Dan.
I'm not in favor of the motion.
What would you change?
With the 1 acre. I think the 3/4, the compromise of the compromise, seems like that is what it's going to work to make this happen.
So I will amend my motion to identify lot 30, 31, and 32 as the park. If the second agrees to amend to my amendment to my motion, which is what
I would second that, barring no changes to these lots as they are, correct?
right. It'd be the boundaries of lot 30, 31, 32, and the rest of the motion with direction for staff to come back stay the same.
Hey, I don't have the lots up in front of me. Are those central lots?
Yes.
Okay.
32 is a corner lot that's about 12,000 square feet. Lot 30 and 31 are 10,200 square feet, 100 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Do the math, Doug.
Get the exact square footage. Okay. While you're doing that, that would also allow for a lot of on-street parking. When you look at Byers Lake Terrace Road and southwest Upper Roy Street, because you'd have all around that corner. It's hard to read this, but yeah, that'd be 60 feet, 70 feet, 103 feet, and I don't know what so that's quite a bit of parking that it would allow for. We just need to make sure that's the allowed side to park on.
And that keeps the remnant lots, well, remnant lots, lot 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, whatever, that's wrong sequence numbers, but on that stretch, the same.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it turns out, it's almost exactly 3/4 of an acre without changing the lot lines. It's 0.751.
Perfect.
There you go. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and in your motion, you've specifically called out the 31, 30,
It's
and
from staff's
32
proposal
from
of the
staff
park being,
proposals.
yeah.
Doug gave that back.
Right.
Is that part of it
Yeah,
also?
that's part of
Okay.
it as well.
All right, so.
If I can be clear for the record, there was an initial motion on the table. The motion was amended and then seconded by Counselor Young, just in case there's a written
Yes.
record.
Yep.
Correct.
And we're just voting on direction for staff.
Yeah, Dan, you had your lights on. Yeah.
No, just hopefully the lots work. I know that they had 3, potentially 10, 11, and 12, and moving it to 32, 31, and 30 still works out.
So that's what I was going to ask, like, because we closed the public hearing. They still had 4 minutes left. Could we offer that to them after we vote to? Like, I don't,
See if that's even
I don't
an
want to
option.
waste
Like if they're not even
staff's
going to go
time.
for this, why?
Well, let's vote on the motion, and we can ask the applicant.
Okay.
So, are we ready to vote? Taylor, did you have any other comments?
No.
All right, so we have a motion and a second as discussed that we would set lots 30, 31, and 32 as the park. We'd get rid of one of the trails. We'd have a sports court. We'd have a bathroom that the city would pay for. And we'd work out a maintenance agreement on the bathroom. Am I missing anything?
Play area.
Play area. So
Flat ADA accessible from the street.
Yeah, that all stays the same.
Hold on, Tim, or Mayor, is it a sports court or a sports?
It's
to be chosen by
the planning commission has to approve. The planning commission has to
Okay.
approve the sports amenity.
The sports
amenity. Perfect. Okay.
Seeking guidance from the Parks Master Plan.
Yep.
All right. So I think we got all that squared away. All right. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Motion passes. And I want to honor Dan's request. If the applicant would like to respond to that at all.
While they're deliberating, I did the quick math, and there's very little difference in total square footage between the 3 lots they proposed and the 3 lots that we proposed, although I think they were going to take some back from 10
I mean, we're going to try to
potentially.
make this work. I mean, this is the best use for this property, to see this all come together. I still want to work with the city, and I think you guys understand that we're going to try to put that path on the north side of lots 11 through 17 and easements on the backside and try to squeeze another lot in there. So really, we're giving up.
Perfect.
Fine.
Yep.
2 more
And
lots.
narrow lots, if you want narrow lots.
Well, no, I don't want 60. I mean, 60 foot is as minimum as you can get, but that is a challenge to build a 3-car garage. A full 3-car garage at 60 feet, 5-foot side yards, you're at 50-foot wide house.
Yep.
It's a challenge.
Yep.
I think we're in favor for you figuring out how you can squeeze another lot that'll work for you guys.
We're the professionals in that, I think.
Awesome.
Thank
Yep.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We have another ordinance.
Yeah, so staff has direction on that, and we're going to move
You guys
to
are
our
welcome to
next meeting.
stay. One more ordinance.
Thank you, Eric.
No, and I don't drive in the snow, so can you come back and give me a ride?
All right. Awesome. All right, so our next item on the agenda, make sure I get this right, is we have an ordinance. Ryan, do you want to read us into this ordinance?
The public hearing on ordinance 2023-002, amending divisions 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code, and repealing ordinance 2022-006, establishing time, place, and manner restrictions on psilocybin service centers, and the manufacturing of psilocybin products is called to order. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. Receive any written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony related to this matter, and time will be limited to 4 minutes per person. Any interested person may present testimony. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, discussion by the council. This is the first hearing before City Council on this item. Generally, council will hold 2 hearings prior to making a decision. A second hearing on this item is currently scheduled for March the 7th. However, in accordance with the city charter, council reserves the right to make a decision at the close of this hearing by a unanimous vote of all sitting council members. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the request to speak forms and submit it to the city recorder prior to the time the public hearing is open for testimony. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any comments must be related to the matter at hand and addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and place of residence for the record, as this hearing will be recorded. Please speak clearly into the microphone. In reaching a decision on this item, the council may be required to consider whether the matter meets relevant approval criteria and any other applicable law. If applicable, those criteria are identified in the staff report, and testimony and evidence must address these criteria or other criteria you believe apply to the decision.
Thank you, Ryan. So we will jump right into the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'm going to be fairly quick this evening. I know that your meeting wraps up at 10. So tonight before you, you have a development code package that the Planning Commission has been working on over the past couple of months. I just want to say that it's pretty important for us to review the development code on a yearly basis to make sure that, we are in check with, state laws that might have changed, any community needs that we feel that we may need to incorporate into the development code, and just overall consistency with clear language so we can interpret the code the best that we can. So with that, the Planning Commission made a recommendation for City Council for your review and final decision on this matter. The Planning Commission held 4 public work sessions on these issues. During the work session process, we did hear from some community residents, but as far as today's date, we haven't received any formal public comments through the public hearing process. So the applicable criteria are found in Title 16.80.030 of the Community Development Code. And on this slide are the proposed chapters that the amendments would include. I know it seems like a lot, but some of these chapters are really just retitling of headings and section numbers. So some of the proposed highlights are on the slide, and I'm not going to go through every single change in this amendment package, but I'm just going to highlight a couple. So most recently, City Council adopted some time, place, and manner restrictions for psilocybin facilities and uses. We have incorporated those changes, and they were modeled on our recreational marijuana code. So we took that and we've incorporated it into the development code. We've added psilocybin facility centers are permitted in the general industrial zone with some special standards for their use and operation. Another code change dealt with private alleys. So private alleys need to be constructed to our public standards, which were just approved last spring during the housing choices work that we did, and they are allowed only in planned unit developments. We made some changes to our private trail standards. So privately maintained trails that are accessible to the public, they need to utilize the public trail standards in the TSP to to make sure that the width of the trails are consistent throughout developments. Planning Commission had reduced adjustments from 10 to 5% and Class B variances from 20 to 10%. And this was actually a recommendation that the Planning Commission made during our Housing Choices update last spring, but it was unfortunately neglected and not carried through to City Council during the City Council hearing process. I know, it was a big oops. So we have brought that back forward. And then we made some adjustments to our industrial design standards. What we're seeing currently is that most applicants will screen their roof-mounted equipment. So Planning Commission, since we're seeing, I want to say over 90% of our applicants doing that already, they'll make that a requirement in the code, and then we just added another design standard that would include making public entryways more pedestrian friendly in those industrial developments. And then to be consistent across the board for residential development, we updated our commercial design standards in the matrix for multifamily development to have a minimum of 15% of building elevation that is adjacent to a public right-of-way, to include windows, entrances, and doors, and then 10% of the side building elevation adjacent to a public right-of-way to have a minimum of 10% glazing. So multifamily, single-family, detached, the whole spectrum of middle housing choices all have that same requirement now. Just a few more here. We did a big kind of reorganization of Chapter 16.96, the on-site circulation standards, to make it more clear and consistent for not only developers who are using that chapter, but for us planners in-house in the way we implement the code. And then we removed ash trees from the street tree list due to the emerald ash borer infestation that's found here in Oregon. We can add those trees back to our code once that bug is gone. And then we completely restructured Division 7, which is our environmental resource chapters for clarity. So that's many of those chapters were just like renumbered and headings were changed. With all that, I know that we've had a lot of eyes on these changes with Planning Commission, but I did find one change and I want to bring this up. So there is correction to Title 16.13.0430, number 6. It actually states marijuana odor, and it should state psilocybin odor in that section. And I'm sorry I don't have the page number.
1262.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, all the amendments proposed are consistent with regional, local, and state goals as listed in the staff report. And with that, staff, our recommendation is to hold a second hearing and to consider, all testimony and the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the modifications or deny this ordinance. But with that, council does have some alternatives. You can approve the development code amendments. You can modify, you can deny, or you can continue the hearing if more information is needed. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have about this code amendment package.
So I have a question. It's
Yes.
Patently designed to just make sure the public understands why we're doing this around the psilocybin, and this is in reaction to the measure that made it legal and made it legal to have facilities where people could go and use that drug. And so I think you used the word state goal, but we're really trying to align with state statute around
Correct.
this. This is a required thing, and we're trying to put it into our code that's in a way that's safe for our community, keeps it in certain areas of town, just like we did with the recreational marijuana stores. Did I get all that right?
You did.
Okay, good.
And it's based very similar on our recreational marijuana code. And as of now, we haven't had any applicants come in, seeking recreational marijuana or any psilocybin facilities.
We have a rec marijuana store, but the psilocybin, the state hasn't done the standards yet for those things yet.
But the recreational marijuana was grandfathered in, right?
We haven't had new applicants.
We haven't had any new applications.
And based on how we've set this up and with their zoning, it's very limited areas of town where this would even be allowed, mainly in our industrial areas, not in our residential areas or commercial areas. So I just want to make sure the public understands that. So,
Not really a question, but more of a comment. And I think as you read through the list of things that are being modified as this package of modifications, I think I just really want to shout out to staff as well as the planning commission there's a mountain of code, obviously, and a lot of that is pretty dated in some cases. And obviously we've had a slew of state and county and metro ordinances that then require us to then make more changes to our code. And so I just, really want to recognize all the work that's been put into going through all this code with a fine tooth comb and finding all the things that need to be changed and updating them all. So, credit to you and the staff and the commission.
any other questions for staff? Do we have any testimony on this subject? Anything online? All right, so I think we're going to close the public hearing. Well, but you're going to go for the next meeting. You'll make that correction that you talked about, and we can review the ordinance at that point in time. Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it. Public hearing is closed. All right, so the next thing is our city manager report.
Mr. Mayor, I think I picked the wrong evening to bring 3 pages worth of updates, so I think I'll just try to keep them brief tonight.
Okay, he's done.
No, I'm calling the bluff. I want the 3 pages.
Maybe 2 pages. So a couple of quick things. The Community Enhancement Program, the CEP applications will be open on March 1st. So for more information, please reach out to City Hall or go to our website. And then just as a reminder, tomorrow there will be, in partnership with the school district, a Sherwood Police Department conducting training at the high school in the morning. So they'll be blocked off and the remainder of the school remain accessible to students, but just in case people see police activity, that's what's going on. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager?
Mayor, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you for asking, though.
I would just ask why he's using such a big font. That didn't sound like 3 pages.
We haven't had a meeting run this long in a long time, so
Two more to go.
So, I have a question. Was there any changes at PD in the last week? Yeah? Was anybody promoted or anything like that?
As a matter of fact, there was. We had 2 sergeants that were promoted, Jason Christensen and Corey Gents.
Outstanding.
And as I mentioned, if you were at the meeting, both of them come with 25 plus years experience, which is really unique for them to step into that role. So, and I'll say it again, we're lucky that they did. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, great to see both internals getting promoted and outstanding officers. Thanks, Chief.
Awesome. Any other questions for the city manager? So we got council.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Are we ready for snow? Are we gonna have snow? Are we gonna have snow? Just that. And then if we are gonna have snow, are we gonna be ready?
So Lydia, Craig, and I have created this fun little text message. So airports at 6 a.m. flights, we have a 5:30 call tomorrow morning to determine what our situation is so that we can notice the public in case we need to do a late start. So we will be in touch, and we have notified staff as well so they know to call in and we can communicate that. So we are prepared and looking forward to that phone call in the morning.
Given the length of our meetings tonight, the snow may come before we leave here.
Thank you for indulging me.
And just a reminder for the kids out there, the city does not decide whether it's a snow day for the schools.
Correct, thank you.
Yes, that would be.
So far, it doesn't look like it's going to get below freezing, so that's.
Fine.
All right. All right, council updates.
Just quickly, thank you, Dan, for going to CDBG for me 2 Thursdays ago. Thank you, Taylor, for going to Police Advisory Board for me last Thursday. I think, Dan, did they take a vote in the city of Sherwood? Senior Center got their grant, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, for the upgrades for the siding and the windows?
Yes.
So that's very exciting. That's all I will say tonight because we've got meetings.
It's going to go right to left this time.
That's great. Attended the Cultural Arts Commission meeting last night. It was great. Talked about art on the landings of the bridge and a few other things, and I'll yield the rest of my time, if there is such a thing.
Whichever one of you attended the Parks Board on my behalf last Monday when I was absent for my birthday, thank you. And if none of you did, then shame on you. And I apologize to the Parks Board for not being there.
Taylor did.
Taylor did. Thank you, Taylor. I asked the city manager if he would find the appropriate backup, and he did. So thank you. So I apologize for not being there. I will definitely be at the next Parks Board meeting, and I will yield the rest of my time.
The Planning Commission met and they went over the Sherwood West concept plan and talked about doing a joint work session with City Council to make sure that what our goals are matching what the Planning Commission is developing for the code for moving forward with that. And then when I was with the city manager today during our meeting, the city attorney came in and interrupted us and told us that there was a pig in the lobby of City Hall. And we got to get our picture taken with the pig from the FFA.
I thought you were kidding. So,
No.
so it wasn't a wild pig or a stuffed pig.
No. It was very well mannered. It was, yeah.
I thought you were kidding when you told me you took a picture of a pig today.
Pig visited all kinds of businesses today.
That's awesome. Well, I will keep it fairly quick. I had a.
Hey,
Oh,
Mayor?
Taylor. I'm sorry, Taylor. Go for it.
That's all right. Parks Board, good meeting. Mostly talked about tree removals. The Police Commission meeting, I wanted to also add a congratulations to Randy Johnson, who retired, and had a great ceremony with him, and continue to give him thanks for the years of service to our community. Also went to a fantastic cultural arts meeting performance with a symphony, a wind symphony that was there, and just I gotta just encourage all of the residents. It was almost a full house there, but we don't get those kind of performances just anywhere, and so fantastic job getting that group there. They played music from Hispanic classical composers. It was really phenomenal. The library board meeting, we're doing some planning to try to find some short wins that we can do, and also we're reviewing our policies on book. What books we hold on to and what we don't. I can't remember. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. And then I also went to the school board meeting, and I wanted to say that just personally, I support they're going to be, they voted to support the local levy for the schools, and their case was very well made, and frankly, I personally support it. It is it's a solution to a terrible problem that was not.
So Taylor, we're running out of time.
Okay, that's it.
10 o'clock.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
It's 10:01, so I move we extend to 10:02, so Mr. Mayor has time to give all of his comments.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. That's really funny. Just very quickly, the most important thing I wanted to say is yesterday I attended the Walk of Remembrance for the two young ladies that were tragically killed on Edie Road a year ago yesterday. Very well attended. I think there was 50 or 60 people there. Got to walk with our chief for a while during that, and a lot of emotions, hard day, but part of the healing for the families and the communities. I also I had a meeting of the 5 families, which is a lunch meeting that we do with Sherwood, Tualatin, Durham, King City, and Tigard, and we talk about a lot of issues that are important to our region of Washington County and legislative initiatives that we might have down in Salem. I also had a meeting with the Washington County Chair and the Washington County Mayors, where we talked about the Washington County budget challenges that they have, et cetera. But I'm going to wrap this up. A lot more. What do you?
It's 2 after.
It's 2 after. So my time is up. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And then we're going to roll right into our
URA.
We got an urban renewal meeting, and we'll just stay right here. And do we need to change the feed before we start this?
Technically, Brian, do we have to recess because of the exec session?
Yeah, I think it's
All right.
we adjourn the council meeting afterwards. I don't think it's
Good. Never mind.
point of parliamentary.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So flip over.
I only have this link for the next meeting, so.
Are we good to start? All right, so I'm going to call to order the meeting of the URA board meeting, Urban Renewal Agency. Roll call. Here?
Here.
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 I can't hear whoever's talking.
Oh, just say
And I
aye.
think we still have somebody on the phone. from
Are you
last
here?
meeting.
Member Giles, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. And
Can we
Member
mute the phone?
Stanky?
Here.
And Member Rouse is absent.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you, Colleen. So we have, this is a really quick meeting. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. We have the approval of the February 7th, 2023 URA board meeting minutes. And we have item B, URA Resolution 2023-002, authorizing the Sherwood Urban Renewal Agency manager to sign a professional services contract with Kittleson and Associates, Inc. for the final decision of the Southwest Ice Age Drive. So,
I make a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? No? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we are,
There is a point that I want to make on the record real quick about whether or not public comment is allowed at URA. It is not allowed at URA, subject to the mayor's discretion. It's not required under state law.
Why isn't it
Or
allowed?
any other,
Can we mute the?
telephone?
or any other rule that I'm aware of in the charter.
Okay, so we don't
You don't have to.
tonight. Okay, great.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we'll go into executive session.
If we get all those things there, we can be out of here.
Enjoy.
Yep.
Hey, can Brad make sure to send me the link for an executive session?
Yes, Taylor, they're going that.
I agree. So we've done what we thought they'd do. See you later. That's perfect. Well, what's in, see, do you like it? The difference between that and Wisconsin is they don't speak German. There's no difference. We don't know what's going on. this lawyer is.
Be there.
I mean, but they've had us sit here all this time, and there's no public. The Nazis get away with anything, they've got power to do it. That's what you deal with Nazis, you have to sort of, they're gonna do what they do to line their pocket and get away with stuff, that's the way it is. And that's what this town is. Lucky you. They all walk around here, so accused of clever. And the first time you really win your ass in court, they're gonna have this way.
See ya. So you doing jujitsu? Have him do it. Come on down.
Yeah, to himself.
Why are you not participating in this?
It's just from a,
Yeah, I know.
the, if